everybody. Yes, it's a wonderful day here in Johannesburg. A little bit warmer than yesterday, but still quite cold on the high-felt Elvis.
Freezing in the morning and, of course, but getting hot in politics, Eben.
Politics and in the news world, it's all happening. And today, Kendall, our focus is a little bit on, well, the removal of
Makhosi
Khoza.
Absolutely, and I think it's hit the rounds. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's got an opinion on the matter.
Yeah, social media is getting crazy, Elvis.
You know that she was chairing Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee, and apparently there was an irretrievable breakdown in the relationship between her and the committee members. And that's why they removed her, and that's why we asked this question.
Yeah, we put a poll up because we want to gauge how you guys are thinking with regards to this development. Some call it sensational. Was the sacking of Makhosi Khoza, was it justified? And the numbers...
They speak volumes. 245 votes in already. 73% of the respondents said no, it wasn't justified.
Only 27% says yes, it was. So let's take a look at what you are telling us.
This one from Lubuyo Noshe says, what happened to having a right to say what you want? Freedom of speech. Some would say, yes, you have to toe the party line.
Yes, Tata Kakanya Masiza says, in light of those who boycotted the parliamentary committee and not fired, I find it strange. But it's clear the tide is turning.
Well, there you have it. These are some of your comments coming through. Please keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. But we're also focusing, of course, the whole week we have been doing so, focusing on Grace Mugabe. She's in the country, we believe.
She's definitely in the country. That's what we've been told by the police. And, of course, it's a story that's just escalated, developed and developed and developed. And it'll probably still be a story next week. So, the First Lady, Grace Mugabe, accused of assaulting model Gabriella Engels, who now are talking about settlements and this kind of thing, and that's why we asked the question.
Yeah, we really want to know from you, what do you make of the alleged payment offer to Grace Mugabe's victim?
Well, there was said to be a blank cheque, or perhaps something that says an open sum.
Oh, yes.
Name your number.
Well, if it was me, I would seriously consider that kind of thing, but that's me. You know, because I don't really like to work, to be honest.
No, neither do I.
And walk around with a bandage around your head.
Anyhow, there's some of the tweets coming in on that question, Kendall. What does Mahafa Noel tell us?
First one, Mahafa comes up, says it's an indication that most cases go nowhere because the perpetrators use money to silence the victim. Unfortunately, this time the victim wants justice.
Let's see if they still want justice next week.
Don van der Voetsek. He says, the rich think they can buy their way out of trouble. Justice needs to be served here.
Interesting. Interesting. That's a sentiment that, well, right now the family's saying they are more interested in justice than they are in money. But you never know how these things develop. We'll see how the story develops. I think the whole world have got their eye on this one because it's become such a sensational story.
And it's an absolute disgrace. But anyway, we've got work to do. Let's take a look at your news. But before we get there, we have a sports question. The Springboks are playing this weekend.
Elvis, how could you forget? Everybody's talking about the Springboks and what they'll be doing tomorrow.
We got a bet on me and him, by the way.
That's why he forgot.
I just want to shake his hand on camera.
Elvis has just
100 rand is on the table, people.
I love South Africa, but I've had a very bad feeling about the Boxers whole week. I think that Argentina are going to stop Tutti's men in their tracks.
Well, I think we got a pairing there in midfield that can probably stop them, but we'll have a look at that and see what happens.
There we go. We've got a bet, two betting men on the cards right here. We'll find out from you. What do you say? Do you think the Springboks, do you think their resurgence will continue this weekend?
I hope it does. I'm willing to pay 100 rand if they do.
Nazim Grootboom says, no doubt about that. Hashtag Springboks and Rugby Championships.
Shafana comes and says, yeah, but yes, the guys are in good condition. So he trusts them.
You see, these guys, they know, man, that we're going to win this weekend.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really do. I really do. Anyhow, it's Friday morning. There's a lot happening. Let's get into our work.
Top story this hour. ANC Chief Whip Jackson Mthembu says that Dr. Makhosi Khoza's removal from chairing the Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee will not hamper the work of Parliament. The police minister, Fikile Mbalula, announced a red alert on South Africa's borders to prevent Zimbabwe's First Lady Grace Mugabe from fleeing the country. And 2 terrorist attacks in the Spanish cities of Barcelona and Gabriels have killed at least 13 people, while a landslide in the northeast of the Democratic Republic of Congo claims 40 lives. So, news from abroad and right here on the continent coming to you. But right now, before we get there, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
It's a pretty big weekend for South African national sides. We also got the PSL starting. So once again, we go into this weekend looking forward to all the action. And I know you guys have got money on this, what's happening this weekend. And I really do hope you're wrong, Eben.
I hope so too.
I hope you're paying Elvis, because we're looking forward to a win on Monday.
That's a small price to pay for my nation.
Yeah, there we go. You know, Eben taking the high ground and giving 100 Rand for a win for the Springboks over the weekend. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
We want to do better, we want to improve, we want to try and make more points than we did last season.
Gavin Hunt, the coach of defending league champions Beat Wits, are looking to do better than last year, starting with a season opening encounter against Cape Town City FC tonight.
While at the same time we are looking, do we have a chance to qualify for CHAN 2018 in Kenya next year?
And not so confident assistant coach Thabo Sinong states that irrespective of their outcome against Zambia in the second leg of the final round of qualifiers, player development will be the winner. Of course, we'll definitely be looking at what's happening with the Springboks over the weekend. Jody Hendricks joins me for that around about 10:40. For now, let's go back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. ANC Member of Parliament Dr. Makhosi Khoza has called on South Africans to realize the importance of implementing and defending the Constitution. She was delivering the Ruth First Memorial Lecture at Wits University last night. Khoza's speech came hours after her abrupt axing as the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration.
We adopted the Constitution of the Republic
out in public for the first time, just hours after being removed. But first, her dream of a non-sexist, equitable and non-racial South Africa that Ruth First stood for.
I was just wondering, what would Ruth First be saying now? When we have the African National Congress Women's League that would stand up and defend a minister who is not just violating the rights of women, but who is using the common weapon that most men use on women, and that is attacking the woman's womb.
Dr. Khoza says the woman's voice needs to be heard.
We need to reflect as South Africa and begin to ask the difficult questions. Are we as a liberation movement building this country, or are we breaking this country? Seeing truth being persecuted the same way as it was when Ruth First was assassinated in 1982, done by my own comrades, who are now persecuting truth, who are saying, we want to go after those who speak truth, because to them, truth has become so uncomfortable.
In a letter, the ruling party has outlined Khoza's sins, from her public utterances calling on the president to step down and her views against the NPs who against the no-confidence motion in the president, to failed attempts by the leadership to discipline her on this, among others. SABC News, Wits University in Johannesburg.
Now, just before she addressed the Ruth First Memorial Lecture and shortly after her axing, Dr. Khoza spoke exclusively to SABC News.
I had anticipated that they were going to do that. The ANC is finding truth very hard to swallow, and the ANC would rather be comfortable with lies, would rather be comfortable with corruption, would rather be comfortable with betraying the mission of its historic mission of liberating Africans in particular, who are trapped even to this day in poverty, unemployment, and inequality.
What are other reasons that were actually stated when they told you that you have been removed now?
They told me that the relationship between myself and the members of the committee has broken down irrevocably. I was also told that I'm no longer trusted because I follow my moral conscience. And if I am fired because I follow my moral conscience, so be it.
Meanwhile, the African National Congress still maintains that it removed Dr. Makhosi Khoza from chairing Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee due to an irretrievable breakdown in relations between her and ANC members of the committee. The ANC Chief Whip, Jackson Mthembu, says the move will not hamper the work of Parliament. He spoke to SABC News this morning.
When we remove anybody from any deployed position, we then replace that person. In this instance, the whip of the party, Lisoma Minor, will then be acting until such time the African National Congress has found a replacement for Comrade Dr. Makhosi Khoza.
Now, police have put a red alert out on South African borders to prevent Zimbabwe's First Lady, Grace Mugabe, from fleeing the country. Mugabe is accused of assaulting Gabriella Engels, a model with an extension cord at a Sandton hotel on Sunday. Former state prosecutor Gerrie Nel says that the family of Engels has rejected a settlement sum that had been offered through a third party. Advocate Nel will be representing the 20-year-old Johannesburg model.
Pretoria is juggling a hot political potato, and AfriForum is baying for blood. The organization says it's supporting the alleged victim in the interest of justice. It's appealed to international relations to decline Mugabe's diplomatic immunity.
We will monitor this. We will support the victim in this regard. And if nothing happens, we will certainly consider prosecuting this matter on our own.
I know these people are not going to back down. They're going to fight us all the way. I am very, very grateful. Now I know that this woman is not going to get off scot-free.
Earlier, Police Minister Fikile Mbalula said the matter of diplomatic immunity had to be dealt with before any action could be taken. He admitted that if Mugabe had been any other person, she would have long been arrested and appeared in court.
Taps have been put, the red alert has been put, so she's not somebody who's been running away from what she said. In fact, she's got her own version of the events. So it's not up to us to engage with that. It's our investigators who've got the case, and at the same time to engage with her.
Pretoria earlier received a request from Harare to invoke diplomatic immunity for Mugabe. DECO wouldn't comment further on the matter. Sipho Stirman, SABC News, Pretoria.
Meanwhile, the former African Union Commission chairperson Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma says that Zimbabwe's First Lady Grace Mugabe, who's accused of beating up South African model Gabriella Engels, must face the full might of the law. Dlamini Zuma was answering questions at the launch of the book on the AU in Durban. Grace Mugabe allegedly used an extension cord with a plug at one end to whoop the 20-year-old Engels in a Sandton hotel on Sunday.
I just think women are capable, whether one beats another, which is wrong and the law must take its course, but women are capable. They cannot be judged on that.
And that is why we're asking you this very important question. We'd like to get your thoughts on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. The question on your screen right now, as we ask you, what do you make of the alleged payment offer to Grace Mugabe's victim? Let me know what's on your mind. We'll read those comments in a short while. But now news from abroad. Spanish authorities have launched an anti-terror operation after a suspected militant drove a van into crowds in Barcelona, killing 13 people. The death toll could rise, with more than 100 injured. IS, or Islamic State, has claimed responsibility for the deadly rampage.
Several have been killed or wounded after a van plowed into dozens of people in Barcelona in what police are calling a massive crash. An armed manhunt underway for the driver, who authorities say fled on foot. They're treating it as an attack, although the motive isn't immediately clear. Social media is showing people scrambling to get away from the area. Emergency services have shut down public transport in the vicinity. The incident happened on Los Ramblas Avenue, a busy area for pedestrians packed with tourists. An estimated 11 million tourists visit the city every year. The crash would add to a wave of militant attacks across Europe, many using vehicles as their weapon. Over 100 have been killed in the last year using this tactic.
Back home, the Gauteng Education MEC is to visit a Kempton Park school this morning, where days of violence between learners have broken out. Videos have gone viral on social media, showing groups of learners fighting and some wielding guns. Unconfirmed reports suggest that a learner was seriously stabbed during one of the altercations. A video recorded by one of the learners at Norcombe Park High shows learners fighting outside the school premises. Now, it's one of several videos taken. In a similar incident, a picture shows a young person believed not to be a learner with a gun. Now, he's believed to have brought the gun to protect a friend attending the school. Several learners are expected to be suspended over the incident. Now, for the latest on this story and the videos, we're joined in studio by our SABC's reporter Griselda Lewis. Griselda, very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Alvis.
Just give us a background to the violence that's happening at Norcombe High there.
Well, we were quite perturbed when we received quite a number of videos from concerned learners as well as parents, who says for days at Norcombe Park High, there have been a series of violent incidents over a number of spats. We'll hear a bit later on this morning exactly what has led to all of this violence. But the videos really show graphic material of learners fighting each other, and some of outsiders brought in to assist some of their friends at the schools, and bringing in some knives as well as some guns as well. And the Gauteng Education MEC is expected at the school at 11 o'clock this morning to try and ensure that a sense of normality does prevail at the school. But I think of concern at this stage, Albus, is the fact that we understand from parents and from some of the learners as well that this has been going on for days, but the management of the school allegedly has done nothing about the incidents at the school, hence now the intervention from the Gauteng Education MEC. So
we understand that the MEC will be there at 11 o'clock. You will be with them visiting the school there. What is the MEC going to do, you think? What is the sort of agenda that he's going to put forward? Well,
we're really expecting him to crack the whip and really ask pertinent questions to the management of the school about why nothing was done about these incidents that have been taking place over the past couple of days. We also expect a bit later on this morning into this afternoon that several learners might be suspended from the school. We understand anything between 5 and 20 of the learners who've been involved in this kind of action. So I think a sense of normality needs to prevail at the school at this time, and it will be very interesting to hear how the management at the school will take action also and ensure that learning and teaching does continue without these incidents taking place, as we also understand that some of this violence has broken out during the break time at the school.
Now, you did indicate that the motive is not yet known, but from the videos you receive and from the people has been sending us, is there indication in terms of what could have led to the violence?
Well, it looks like a spat between different groups of learners. So it apparently started with 2 learners and then escalated into a formation of groups amongst these learners, and then that escalated into days of violence that had taken place at the school. And well, the TIF, we're not really sure at this stage. I'm really waiting to hear from the Gauteng Education MEC will engage with the school's management this morning. I really don't want to speculate at this stage, but to hear what the Gauteng Education MEC will say about what has led to this kind of violence.
Griselda, you will give us an update a little bit later when you are there. So that is Griselda Lewis, our reporter, telling us about that story from that school in Kempton Park. SABC reporter Griselda Lewis. She'll give us an update just after 11 o'clock. Now, on our poll today, we focus on the ANC removing Dr. Makhosi Khoza from chairing Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee due to an irretrievable breakdown in relations between her and the ANC members of the committee. So we're asking you, was the sacking of Dr. Makhosi Khoza justified? There you have it on your screen right now. 292 votes in, 74% are saying yes, and only 28%, in fact 26% are saying yes, and 74% are saying no. The sacking of Makhosi Khoza was not justified. But right now, let's take a look at what's happening on Twitter, and we're going to get some of your comments shortly with Eben to give you an indication of what is happening there.
Yeah, Albert, thank you very much. Okay, I'm on camera 3. Very good morning, everybody. Nice to be with you. Of course, today, well, we're talking all matters ANC, and lots of developments been happening in the last 24 hours. We'll speak to relevant stakeholders. The ANC Youth League is here with us. I'll speak to them after a short little break. We also, well, get the word from the SG Gwede Montashe to sort of set the scene for us. But before we do all of that, let's just do a bit of housekeeping. Of course, it's all happening on social media, as you can see from our poll that people are voting on. The top trend, the hashtag is Makhosi Khoza, no doubt. Of course, she's been axed from the ANC, not from the ANC in general, but, you know, as the head of the PSA, as the of the PSA committee in Parliament. Of course, she spoke at length, as you said a little bit earlier, about the lack of confidence in the president. The other big one today is the First Lady, Grace Mugabe. So she's still one of the most spoken about figures this week. The hashtag there, Grace Mugabe, it's all over social media. Of course, the alleged assault, as you see from the wounds on the victim there, a young woman in the Santa Natal. You saw Gerenal from AfriForum. They're representing Gabriella Engels in the court case that is set to follow. But we still haven't heard anything from Durko, and we'll see how this one develops today. Then, South Africans seem to be a fan of the cold. The hashtag cold front continues to trend. Yes, many of you are sharing pictures with us. Thank you for sending in those pictures on our Facebook page. Here we see some nice snow pictures coming in from the Eastern Cape and other parts of the country that's seen heavy snowfall in the last 24 to 48 hours around the country. Now, onto the international front, there's big news coming out of Spain. Of course, as you saw, a van drove into a crowd of people in 2 different cities, killing at least 13 and injuring more. Please be warned that the cell phone footage on social media platforms are unedited and shows dead and bloody bodies strewn all over the place. Please protect your children from such visuals. It's hashtag Barcelona terror attack. Now, on a lighter note, the most liked tweet in history has been recorded, and it was a Nelson Mandela quote. Isn't it cool? Tweeted by former US President Barack Obama. The caption says, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his or her skin, or his or her background or religion." This follows the Charlottesville racial attacks that took place last week at Barack Obama. If you want to interact with the president, former president, that is. Now, let's take a look at our picture of the day. This one comes from Rob Beasy at Traffic SA, and it's captioned the Eastern Cape. Let's take a look at this. Looks like it's definitely not in South Africa, I can tell you that. That's the reason for the chill across South Africa right now at Storm Report SA1. This is between Berkeley East and Elliot. This picture was taken, and it looks a little bit like Switzerland, if we're honest. Now, for our comment of the day, this one comes from Hurenel Binawi, who says, the Barcelona attack. Of course, it's a shocker, isn't it? All terrorist attacks bring sadness to the heart, as lives of innocent people are lost forever and some are maimed for life. Just don't expose your children to those pictures that are doing the rounds on social media. Some of them are absolutely gruesome. quick roundup of the courts. We'll start in the capital in Pretoria, where 5 men accused of assaulting a couple at a KFC outlet are expected to appear in the Pretoria North Magistrates Court. Now, the attack at a KFC drive-thru was captured on cell phone video. The clip went viral on social media earlier this month. The 5 are facing charges of attempted murder, assault with the intent to do grievous bodily harm, and pointing a firearm. Some of you are asking me on social media, why is Gerinel not representing these victims? It's a good question. Then, in the Western Cape, the esteemed state agent Jason Ruth is expected back in the dock in the High Court in the Western Cape for a pre-trial conference. Ruth is accused of murdering his wife Susan in a luxury hotel situated outside Stellenbosch. That was in July of last year. He denies killing his wife and claims that she committed suicide. Now, Ruth is out on 100,000 Rand bail. It's a story that's got people sitting up and taking notice. We'll give you the details a little bit later on this platform. Now, let's look forward to Monday quickly. Monday, we'll be talking about the issue of diplomatic immunity, and we're going to bring all stakeholders in. Yes, we're kind of taking a longer view on the Grace Mugabe thing and see how does it involve the First Lady, who qualifies for diplomatic immunity after this alleged assault on the 20-year-old Gabriella Ingalls with an extension cord at a luxury Sandton hotel over the weekend past. Hopefully, we can secure all of the relevant stakeholders and get them in to talk about diplomatic immunity, how it relates to this case, and, of course, the court case that seemingly will follow if a payment offer is not accepted until then. The ANC Youth League is here with us. We'll talk to them about, I'll ask them for their opinion on Makhosi Khoza sacking, but also we are there to talk about discipline within the governing party. Don't miss it.
We're talking news, business and sporting updates both continentally and abroad. South Africa is in its first economic recession since 2009.
Currency has appreciated quite a lot, especially for this year. And it has benefited from a number of things, not so much to do with what was happening here at home.
The Islamic State-linked news agency AMAC claims the latest attack was launched because of Australia's backing in the US fight against the group.
Constad is one of the dozens of women who have accused Cosby of sexual assault, but hers is the only case recent enough to be subjected to criminal prosecution.
Stay tuned to News Today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
Welcome back with Newsroom here on SABC News. Now, the ANC is to discipline at least 3 and maybe 5 MPs who have publicly admitted that they voted in support of the motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma. The party says its National Working Committee decided at a meeting this week that the MPs must face a disciplinary inquiry. Secretary-General Gwede Mantashe explains to us the party's view.
Where MPs, after the vote of no confidence, at least 3 of them have done that up to now, go up and confirm themselves that we voted with the opposition, we'll have to deal with that situation. Because if we don't, we are going to be destroying the essence of being an organization. But those who just voted with the opposition, keep quiet, we're not going to go and smell them around and try to check who they are, how did they do it. We're not going to do that. The reason that we must deal with those who come up and confirm is that when you do that, you go out of your way to undermine the organization. That's the reason that if you go and vote in a secret ballot and you vote with the opposition, and the third point we're making is an assumption that we don't know who voted what way. But if you go and say, I did vote with the opposition, then you are actively trying to undermine the ANC, and actually you are dealing with the foundation of an organization. That one we'll have to confront.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about this story. We are joined in studio by the ANC Youth League Secretary, Njabulu Nzuza. Now, the League's been calling on the Secretary General to investigate which MPs voted in favour of this motion of no confidence in the President. But before we get there, the last 24 hours, we've seen this in the developments out of Parliament with the Committee on Public Service and Administration. We've seen Makhosi Khoza being taken off this committee. Good morning first. And secondly, how do you as the Youth League view these developments?
Good morning to you, and good morning to all the viewers at home, and thank you for having us here today. Our view is that, look, Makhosi Khoza has become one of the most valuable weapons for the Democratic Alliance and opposition forces, because he stands to criticize the organization whilst she is within the organization. As a result, what she says is perceived as truth. And we can't consistently keep enemies of the organization and maintain them within the organization. It is unheard of. Makhosi Khoza was sent to Parliament to be an ambassador of the African National Congress, not to be a weapon of the opposition. And as a result, if he's no longer servicing the agenda of the African National Congress, therefore she must be removed from Parliament, and we send cadres who are capable, because we have a lot of capable cadres who are going to be willing and are able to be true ambassadors of the African National Congress. And what is worse is that he stands and grandstands on the basis that she is fighting corruption. Whilst the fact of the matter is she's never even opened a single case of corruption. How do you say you are fighting corruption and you are being targeted because you are fighting corruption, whereas you have never even taken steps against corruption or filed cases against corruption? To us, this is just loud hailing from her part, grandstanding that seeks to destroy the organization, because she is clearly working with opposition forces to attempt to discredit and destroy the ANC.
You're talking about her working with the opposition, so you want further action taken against her. But we're running a poll here and we're asking our viewers what do they think about that, and about 3/4 of more than 300, there you can have a look at it. Just take about 300 votes in us. Was the sacking justified? And 3/4 of our viewers are saying no. Are you not afraid that these kinds of events can really hurt the ANC and make them lose a little bit of support?
Well, factor there, we're talking about 292 people, whereas we should be polling a poll of close to 40 million people.
No, this is just a snap poll.
Yes, I'm just making that point exactly. That is something that can change. I can go to Twitter now and ask members of the organization to go in and vote, and within an hour that poll will have changed. And in fact, I will encourage them to go in and vote so that, it shows a true reflection. But we can't really use a poll of about, which is less than even 1% of the total population, and then we want to deduce it as something that is actually factual. Yes, it does send an indication. We'll look into that indication, but the ANC can't keep enemies within it who seek to destroy it. Otherwise, it will go in and die slowly whilst we maintain them within the organization.
Let's go back to the vote of no confidence, which is why you came in today to talk to us. It was overtaken by the events in the last 24 hours. Talk to me about the action that you want taken against MPs who voted with the opposition in the vote of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma.
Well, firstly, there are those who have come out clearly and said that they voted with the opposition forces. And when they voted with the opposition forces, they must immediately be removed from Parliament, because it means even in future actions that the ANC might have to pursue, they might not vote with the ANC. If we are saying that we want the land to be returned to the people and we are putting in a motion, how do you trust that those people will vote with the ANC? Because at the center of the issues that are being discussed within the movement is the issue of saying, are we happy with the current state of the economy as it is, where it excludes others and only includes a few? And others are saying, no, it's fine where we are. And those are the ones who are frankly against the president and who are willing to even collapse the organization. What you must know is that the motion of no confidence was not brought in order to collapse or to remove Zuma from office, but it was brought in to remove the ANC from government. Because if the opposition wanted to remove Zuma, they should have opted for using Section 89 of the Constitution, which speaks to the removal of the president, and not use Section 102, which ultimately seeks to remove the entire ANC from government. So as a result, those people have done something that is very wrong. Their actions amount to grave offense in terms of the constitution of the ANC, and they must be dealt with.
The number can be as high as 35 MPs. It was a secret ballot. It's near impossible to point out who they are, other than the handful who have come out and vociferously said that they are against the leadership. They call it a witch hunt, and it could amount to a witch hunt, and this could really hurt the ANC from within. How do you view this term witch hunt, and how do you view the possible 35 MPs, and how should they be disciplined?
Well, there must be an investigation. We are not looking for disciplining people who have done something that is not wrong. We are looking and investigating people who have done something wrong. A witch hunt is when you want to bring someone down even if they have not done anything. And as a result, that is why we are saying, let us launch an investigation. An investigation that will determine who participated in the process of making sure that, you know, the vote of no confidence against the president succeeds. Those will be the people who might have attempted to lobby other members of parliament. Those will be the people who might have had meetings with opposition leaders to say that we must bring down the president. And as a result, when you do that investigation, you will then be able to establish concrete evidence on the role that has been played by other people. And then there must be discipline. Because if you leave them just like that, then what justifies another person from doing the same thing and keeping quiet in the future?
Is it possible for you to, with everything that went on with a secret vote, a secret ballot is what it was, is it possible for you to, in a legal framework, find those MPs?
No, we are not saying let us open ballot boxes and try maybe and get fingerprints of who voted. That's not what we are saying. We are saying launch an investigation, establish who participated. An investigation, I'll cite an example. A person might have voted secretly, but in the process building up to the vote, they might have went out, discussed with some people, and planned how they actually wish to bring the country and the ANC government down. And in that process, you then establish facts. We're not saying go to the ballot boxes and open them and interfere with their right of voting in secret, but they should have played a role in the process building up to that. And if we can establish who those people are, they must be brought into book.
I've got two more questions that I have to ask. The first one relates to the secret ballot itself and how it was announced. How do you view the work that was done by Belegambete and the announcement that was made on a secret ballot in the first place?
Well, to us as the ANC Youth League, we're not concerned because we knew whether secret ballot or no secret ballot, the ANC at the end of the day was going to emerge victorious. The issue of the secret ballot also brought closure on this issue because opposition forces really felt that they have enough numbers, you know, to actually topple the ANC government, using ANC members to topple ANC government, and it did not happen. And it brought closure for that on that matter. In fact, the people who rested with an egg on their face was the EFF, which had actually even prepared an interdict which they were going to file in the Western Cape High Court to say the proceedings must not continue, and they failed in their attempts.
Finally, I want you to look a little bit further forward now towards 2019. Now, this week I saw some posts by Fakey Mentor about what the ANC will look like after 2019, and she spoke about alliances between the Nkosazana Dlamini group, which of course you guys at the Youth League have supported, and the EFF after 2019. As the Youth League, how do you view alliances, possible alliances in an outlook towards post-2019 with the EFF?
Well, firstly, we must agree that some of the problems that we're facing as the ANC are because this year is a conference year of the ANC. That is why you see so much grandstanding, because people want to project themselves as people of high moral authority whilst they are hating the party.
Yeah.
Immediately after 2017, we are going to be focusing on bringing back the organization to our people, building structures of the organization, mobilizing popular support, preparing for an overwhelming victory of the African National Congress in 2019. We actually do not anticipate that we will be in a situation where we actually have to force alliances. But politics of collusions and on alliances, they are coming up, and we can't ignore them. And as the ANC, we must start preparing a framework on how we deal with those issues. If you look at local government elections, they came in, we did not have a framework. We must, deal with that particular framework. But that does not mean that the ANC is not confident that it will win 2019. The issues that are there, we will deal with them, and immediately after the conference, the ANC will be united. It's just that other people decide to grandstand, either than focusing on loping branches of the ANC, and they think that appearing on TV actually boosts their, standings in terms of being successful in the December conference, which is not the case.
I thank you very much for coming in and confronting all the issues with us here today at Newsroom. Thank you once again. That is the Secretary of the ANC Youth League, Njabula Nzuza, talking to us about a whole range of issues. Of course, the latest one has been, of course, the sacking of Dr. Makhosi Khoza, who worked as the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration. Let's have a look at how you're polling now. You guys are watching and you guys are telling us 339 votes in now. Was the sacking justified? 3/4 are saying no, it was not. Let's take a look at some of your tweets. This one from Rasibaba Mapaho, who says to us, no, not at all. We're all going back to the time of apartheid. You speak the truth and you get punished for that. This one from Fapov, who says, Newsroom, it's been long overdue. She should have been fired before the vote of no confidence. Now she is free to join the DA. These are just some of your views. Let's just take a quick look at the front pages from around the world now. Don't forget to keep it coming. We'll start in the UK, where The Guardian reports that citizens from at least 24 countries have been injured or killed in the van attack in the Las Ramblas area of Barcelona and the coastal town of Cambrils. Now, that's according to Catalan authorities, and that numbers will change. Now, moving to Australia, the Telegraph there says that Malcolm Turnbull has urged mutual respect across all parts of Australia's society as Pauline Hanson defended her decision to wear a burqa in the Senate. Then finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that President Donald Trump lashed out again yesterday at critics of his response to a white nationalist rally that took place last weekend, defending the rights of protesters to preserve Confederate culture and iconography throughout the U.S. South. That's elsewhere in the world. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Albus will be talking to an analyst about all the latest goings-on within and without of the ruling party. Let me see.
Are you about that trending life? The looking good and all that slayage? Well, fear not, because Trends has all the fashion do's and don'ts for you to stay on point this upcoming season.
This film will be an immersive spectacle. You got Kong that's 100 feet tall.
It tells this incredible story of man versus nature.
The iconic stage production by Mbongeni Ngema is back with a bang.
Sarafina is a classic South African production.
I always choose to align myself with brands that I just love. Because when you love something, it doesn't become work.
Luxury is not built overnight, but it's an experience that comes
with time.
Catch up with all the trends on Trends Saturdays at 12.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the advice of our elders? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Welcome back. Now, it's been a very busy political week, especially for the ruling party, the African National Congress, as you know. The ANC Youth League, they want the ANC Secretary-General, Gwede Mantashe, to investigate which MPs voted in favor of the motion of no confidence in the President, Jacob Zuma. The party sacked Dr. Makhosi Khoza, as you just heard, from chairing Parliament's Portfolio Committee, and they say it's an irretrievable breakdown of the system between the chairperson and the members. And of course, the High Court has heard how a few disgruntled individuals are trying to fight what was legally elected as the new executive for the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Political analyst Elvis Besoga now joins us from our Polokwane studios to help us make some sense out of all of this that's happening within the African National Congress. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
My namesake Elvis. Good morning to you and all the viewers of SABC News.
Now, would you say that the latest developments within the African National Congress is a classic pre-election conference theatrics, or is there more to it that we can read into it?
You know, Elvis, I'm becoming extremely fearful of the trajectory that our country is embarking on, the Republic of South Africa, because the recent actions by the ANC national leadership to seek to embark on a witch hunt and a ghost hunt against ANC members of parliament who acted constitutionally on the 8th of August, it's an indication that, you know, we are entering a very scary, you know, trajectory as a country. Because remember, the moment an organization such as the ANC adopts autocratic totalitarianism that seek to silence those who speak truth, honesty and principle, then doom and gloom will fall on our country. Because I'm asking myself, why should the ANC national leadership seek to undermine and besmirch the quality of our constitution? Because the constitution is quite clear when it comes to determination of democracy that a secret ballot will be utilized even during general elections and local government elections. Millions of citizens are using a secret vote to determine a new kind of government that they want. Remember, even this democracy that we are having, the one that was born on 27 April 1994, came as a result of a secret vote. A secret vote is a father and a mother of our constitutional democracy. So why should the ANC national leadership today try to undermine this constitutional reality of a secret vote? Because, and I don't understand, why are they seeking to punish them? Because they voted with their conscience, which is protected by our constitution. Because we can't say the ANC constitution is more supreme to the constitution of the Republic of South Africa. It's very worrisome, Elvis.
Now, you heard from the ANC Youth League, and they gave us a consolation that it will be an investigation. It's not a witch hunt. They won't open the ballot boxes. Does it help you in any case in relation to what you are saying?
You know, I wonder whether the ANC national leaders and by extension the broader national leadership of the ANC Youth League, whether do they sometimes have time to think, you know, logically and intelligently. I wonder, because, you know, logically sane people and leaders, when they are faced with this kind of a challenge, they will never try to witch hunt or ghost hunt, members who acted, within their conscience. Because the question is, how are they going to know which ANC MPs voted for the motion or voted against the motion or even abstained? Remember something very important that is missing from the public discourse with regard to this debate, is that there are three categories of voters who participated in the motion of no confidence. Firstly, there were those who voted for the motion. Secondly, there were those who voted against the motion. And thirdly, there are those who abstained. An interesting question is, will the ANC national leadership also embark on a witch hunt against those who abstained? Because now they are only talking about those who did not vote for President Jacob Zuma. What about those who abstained? So to me, it's a very thoughtless and a very foolish exercise on the part of the ANC, because you will never know how members voted. It was a secret vote. Even the IEC, our Independent Electoral Commission, should advise the ANC to tell them if there was a secret vote, it is impossible to know how a citizen voted during a secret election.
Now, also, the Pietermaritzburg High Court has heard how a few disgruntled individuals are trying to fight what was legally elected as the new executive in the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Does this particular court case speak to the schisms within the African National Congress?
Come again, Elvis. I didn't capture the last part of the question.
Does this indicate about a schism within the party? Because the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, you've seen that High Court case happening there where the branches are complaining about the elected leadership.
If you remember, I think, the other camp or faction, of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, that, took the matter to the High Court, seem to be having a leg to stand on, because I remember there were reports prior to that, provincial conference of the ANC that seek to say the office of the Secretary General of the ANC advised against holding that provincial conference. And if that is true, obviously, it is going to be entertaining in court to say if indeed the Secretary General expressed, an opinion to say that I don't think you are ready, let us not hold a conference now. But other people decided against that. So it is having some local standing as far as I'm concerned. But at the end of the day, we don't know how a court of law is going to adjudicate. We don't know whether it's going to rule in favor of the faction that is against the elected leadership or in favor of the current provincial leadership in KwaZulu-Natal. It's a matter of just wait and see game.
Mr. Moshoga, very briefly, in 30 seconds, do you think that the latest developments within the African National Congress will affect the outcomes of the elective conference at the end of the year?
One thing that we are not aware, we are facing the possibility of the death of the Tripartite Alliance, absolutely in a literal sense, because a particular presidential outcome can result in the political death of the Tripartite Alliance, because my observation is that COSATU and Communist Party, they will never associate themselves after the December conference with an ANC that is led by a person they believe does no longer represent the ANC, because they made it very clear. And even if you are gouging the language, the tone by leaders of COSATU and Communist Party, they are willing to walk away if a particular presidential candidate is elected in December. So there is a possibility that the Tripartite Alliance can die a natural death after this December conference. But it will depend on who will emerge victorious as the new president of the ANC after December.
I thank you so much for your time, sir. That was political analyst Elvis Moshoga talking to us from Polokwane. Well, what do you make of that? But right now, it's time for Sports Talk with Eben and Kendall.
Yeah, thanks to the Elvises there on this Friday day. Makes you want to play a song, doesn't it? Anyhow, the Springboks open their account in this year's Rugby Championships against Los Pumas of Argentina. That's on Saturday. Now, Alice, you can see, has made 3 changes to the side, bringing in Uzair Kasim from our hometown there down in the Western Cape to take over at number 8. Kuni Oosthuizen is also back in the side. Now, Kendall is here with me. Kendall is full of vigor, believes the Boks are going to get it done on Saturday.
They need to. It's really important that the Boks start off this campaign on a good note. We all know what's at the end of the tunnel. End of the tunnel is the 15th of November. Massive announcement about who's hosting Rugby World Cup 2023. We're up against Ireland. We're up against France. We've shown what we can do against France on the playing field. And hopefully what happens on the playing field garners enough attention to Springbok rugby and how well organized it is and how well we do were we to host the World Cup, and we need to win.
A lot has been made about this victory 3-0 against the French, but if we are really honest, this was the worst French side ever to come to South Africa, and the acid test will be from this weekend onwards.
Look, the thing about the French is, and they've always had that thing about them, about how mercurial they are. You never know which French side is going to show up, etc. So yes, they're the worst or the best, however, they were expected to do well. And they had some of their top 14 players coming back into the French side, and we beat them. So a win is a win is a win. What's really important is how we've come out of that win going into this match against Argentina. Argentina have been preparing for this match, I'd say, since last year, targeting this particular match, because after 2015, when they beat the Springboks for the very first time ever, all of a sudden, the Springboks were the team to go after.
The Pumas have improved exponentially over the last couple of years. They're a great side, now one of the top sides in the world. The front row is going to be good. We're playing with Kuni in the front row this week. Some people say it's a bit dodgy. Also, our loose trio is not the biggest loose trio that's ever played for the Boks against a very big one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be a tough ask for the Springboks to come out winners with a big margin. They're going to have to fight tooth and nail. Eben Etzebeth is going to have to rally the troops around him and make sure they do the job. But it's important they come out with a win.
Kendall wasn't prepared to take a bet. I've had a bad feeling the whole week. Let's hope that I'm wrong and that the Springboks do the business tomorrow against Argentina. The rugby in South Africa certainly needs that kick in the arm as we head into the Rugby Championships. Thanks, Kendall.
Very good.
Time for us now to go over to the weather.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's take a look at what's happening on this cold, freezing day. Starting off with the southern parts of the country, we're expecting still cold weather to persist over the Eastern Cape with rainfall possible for today and tomorrow. But then just to take a closer look at the snowfall forecast, starting here over the Eastern Cape in places like Barkley, Eastern Elliot, and towards southern parts of Lesotho, and of course over parts of the interior of KwaZulu-Natal. That includes places like Ladysmith, Newcastle, Falkrast, in the southern parts of Mpumalanga, and also places like Standerton. You may see some snowfalls for later on tonight. Otherwise, heavy rain is expected for the coastal areas of KwaZulu-Natal, up to 60% and even up to 80%, especially over the northern coastline of KwaZulu-Natal. That's also where we're expecting rainfall from Richards Bay, from towards Maputo. That's where we're expecting a warning for heavy rain, so do be careful in those areas. There may be flash flood leading to urban flooding. And looking at tomorrow's weather, still clear skies over most of the interior, but along the western coastline here, we're expecting stronger northeasterly winds all along the western coastline, dry conditions there and warmer weather, but along the east, still cold weather for Gauteng residents into Mpumalanga. Cloudy weather in KwaZulu-Natal, especially over the coastal areas, with a small possibility of some isolated showers, especially along the extreme northeastern coastline. Otherwise, isolated showers are expected for tomorrow in the northern parts of Mozambique and southern parts of Tanzania. And of course, the DRC is seeing some moisture coming back in towards the southern parts, including places like closer towards Tanzania. Now, your temperatures for this afternoon, still expecting warm weather along the western parts of the country, like Springbok. We've got this northeasterly flow, which is warming up the towns here along the western coastline. Cape Town at 19, but over the east, we're still seeing those cold conditions. Komani at 12. Like I said, still expecting snowfalls, especially disruptive snowfalls, especially here in the southern parts of Lesotho. Durban only peaking at 15. It's a cool day for the rest of the day today. And of course, Limpopo province is now starting to see cooler conditions. Polokwane at 19 for today, and minimum temperatures overnight will be very cold in those areas. So do get an extra blanket just for the chilly winter this weekend. And looking at the northern parts, the cold winter is also moving in towards places like Gaborone and Maun for tomorrow. In Botswana, we're seeing a high of 23. It's been relatively warm for the past couple of days. Looking at Victoria, tomorrow it's still quite warm today. It's at 29. And the northern parts, looking at Nampo Pula only peaking at 30. And going towards the islands, we're seeing some isolated showers in places like Moroni, with rainy weather expected, Moroni and Victoria. Well, for today, I'll leave your weather here for now. This was newsroom weather. Keep on watching.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the words of our sacred texts? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Hello again. Yes, very good morning to you. It's 10 o'clock Central African time, that is, if you're in the Middle East, wherever you are. A very good morning to you. Kendall Mahamati is with me.
Yeah, we've got lots to cover going into the weekend, lots to talk about on the sports, but even more to talk about in terms of news.
Yeah, the big story of the day really has, of course, been the removal of Dr. Makhosi Khoza, chairperson of Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee, due to what the ANC called an irretrievable breakdown in relations between her and members of that committee.
And that's exactly why we'd like you to get involved in the conversation by asking you, was the sacking of Dr. Makhosi Khoza justified?
Well, the numbers are 339 votes in right now. Now, we were told by the Youth League a little bit earlier, this is not a reflection of South Africa, but this snap poll that we do daily indicates that of the 339 of you that are watching us and voting, 3/4 are saying it wasn't justified.
Some 220 votes coming in so far saying that they don't think the sacking of Makhosi Khoza was justified.
Yeah, even a little bit more than that. I think it's 3/4. Closer to 250, Kendall. Anyhow, that's where we are. This one from Gudani Mashanyu, who tells us, didn't the Concord say that MPs are protected from being dismissed or fired due to votes of no confidence? Or was I just wrong?
Siso Khoza says, Makhosi Khoza, she must resign and join the DA.
Yeah, that's a sentiment that we've seen a lot on social media today, is that why must you have somebody within an organization that continually criticize that organization? That's been a comment that's been quite popular on social media today. Even that was said by the secretary of the ANC Youth League a little bit earlier when we interviewed him, is that, well, she's doing a lot of good work for the opposition.
The one thing I can say that is she garnered a lot of comment, a lot of opinion, and we're definitely planning to take that further today.
Now, our question today has been the big question of the week. Yes, Zimbabwe's First Lady, Grace Mugabe, she's still in the country. Of course, she's accused of assaulting a South African model who rejected a settlement sum that's been offered through a third party, allegedly. But that's our question.
Once again, we'd like you to get involved. What do you make of the alleged payment offer to Grace Mugabe's victim?
Well, there's lots of tweets and lots of comments going all over social media. We can only take a few. This one from Makawe Umalu, who says to us,
bribery is totally unacceptable. Let the law take its course. We hope justice will be reached.
Yeah, a settlement can only be reached in a court. You are right. Before that, it is a bribe. Thomas Matia says to us, I was going to take it if it was me. There's no way Grace Mugabe will go to jail anyway. Not even for 5 seconds. There's Thomas Madia.
The realist.
The realist, yes. It depends on the number, my friend. I suppose depends on the number. Blank check is the word that's been going.
I heard that.
It's been going around, Kendall.
That was a blank check.
Anyhow, let's get to the Boks. Yeah, the Boks are up. First weekend of the Rugby Championship, and of course we all have high hopes for the Springboks, but I've had a really funny feeling the whole week. Actually, for more than a week.
So much so, you've actually even put money on the Springboks not winning tomorrow.
No, I'm just being the devil's advocate. I'm not betting against my nation. Just being the devil's advocate, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong because, you know, sometimes you get it wrong and you can still be a winner.
No, we hope that Eben is wrong, and tell us what you think. Do you think that the Springboks resurgence, this recent resurgence of the Springboks, do you think it will continue this weekend?
Well, Gordhan comes back, he says, let's be honest, the Springboks are the best thing we have, sports-wise. Of course, the resurgence will continue.
Forget about the cricket team. Don van der Voetsek says, definitely yes. They've been in good form this year. We comfortably whitewashed France, and history is on our side at this venue.
Oh, interesting. Done your homework there, Don. Good on you, my friend. Anyhow, we've got a lot to get through. We've got, well, the ANC's spokesperson, Zizi Kodwa, is going to be with us shortly. That and some other interesting interviews to follow. But first, let's take a look at our top stories. ANC Chief Whip Jackson Mtambu says Dr. Makhosi Khoza's removal from chairing Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration will not hamper the work of Parliament. Police Minister Fikile Mbalula announced a red alert on South Africa's borders to prevent Zimbabwe's First Lady Grace Mugabe from fleeing the country. And 2 terrorist attacks in the Spanish cities of Barcelona and Cambrils has killed at least 13 people, while a landslide back on the continent in the northeastern parts of the Democratic Republic of the Congo has claimed 40 lives. Well, those are your top stories in news. Let's go over to Kendall for sport.
Thank you very much, Evan. This is what we've got for you in the news this morning.
We want to do better. We want to improve. We want to try and make more points than we did last season.
Gavin Hunt, the coach of defending league champions Bidvest Wits, is looking to do better than last year, starting with a season-opening encounter against Cape Town City FC tonight.
While at the same time we are looking, do we have a chance to qualify for CHAN 2018 in Kenya next year?
And not so confident coach Thabo Sinong states that regardless of the outcome against Zambia this weekend, player development will be the winner.
I'm happy to know that our balance is right. Zia Kasim has played, at 8 before.
And Alistair Coetzee was Cheetahs loose forward Zia Kasim plays in the starting lineup as 8th man, as one of the 3 changes to the Springboks for the Rugby Championship match against Argentina. And of course, in this hour, I'll be chatting to Jody Hendricks a little bit about the Rugby Championship and the Springboks prospects. Make sure you stick around for that around about 10:40 or so. For now, it's back to Evan, who's got the news.
Well, we've got a developing story. Breaking news, as it's called. The High Court in Pretoria has dismissed the application by former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan to have the court rule that he's not authorized to interfere in the Gupta family's dispute with 4 major banks. Now, Gordhan brought the application while he was still the Finance Minister after the bank's moves between December 2015 and April of last year. The 4 banks closed the accounts of Gupta-owned companies, which prompted the family's request that the minister intervene then. That story is developing. We'll keep developing it as we do here on the Newsroom show. Now, our top story, of course, ANC Member of Parliament, Dr. Makhosi Khoza, has called on South Africans to realize the importance of implementing and defending the Constitution. She was delivering the Ruth First Memorial Lecture at Wits University last night. Khoza's speech came hours after her abrupt axing as chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration.
We adopted the Constitution of the Republic
out in public for the first time, just hours after being removed. But first, her dream of a non-sexist, equitable and non-racial South Africa that Ruth First stood for.
I was just wondering, what would Ruth First be saying now? When we have the African National Congress Women's League that would stand up and defend a minister who is not just violating the rights of women, but who is using the common weapon that most men use on women, and that is attacking the woman's womb.
Dr. Khoza says the woman's voice needs to be heard.
We need to reflect as South Africa and begin to ask the difficult questions. Are we, as a liberation movement, building this country, or are we breaking this country? Seeing truth being persecuted the same way as it was when Ruth first was assassinated in 1982, done by my own comrades, who are now persecuting truth, who are saying, we want to go after those who speak truth, because to them, truth has become so uncomfortable.
In a letter, the ruling party has outlined Khoza's sins, from her public utterances calling on the president to step down and her views against the MPs who voted against the no-confidence motion in the president, to failed attempts by the leadership to discipline her on this, among others. SABC News, Wits University in Johannesburg.
Now, the ANC still maintains that it removed Dr. Makhosi Khoza from chairing Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee due to an irretrievable breakdown in relations between her and then the members of this committee. Now, the ANC's Chief Whip, Jackson Mthembu, says the move will not hamper the work of Parliament. Mthembu spoke to SABC News a little bit earlier this morning.
When we remove anybody from any deployed position, we then replace that person. In this instance, the whip of the party, Lisoma Minor, will then be acting until such time the African National Congress has found a replacement for Comrade Dr. Makhosi Khoza.
Now, to talk a little bit about this and some other related matters, we are joined in studio by the ANC spokesperson, Zizi Kodwa. Very good morning to you, Mr. Kodwa.
Morning to you. Thanks very much for having us once more.
No, thanks to you for coming in. You know, on these days when there's so much activity around stories, sometimes I think it's best to keep quiet, but I commend you for coming in and coming to talk to us. Now, the removal of Makhosi Khoza, it's caused a lot of sensation in the media, as most things or most decisions around the ANC does these days. Just take us through the process that led to this decision.
Firstly, nobody is guaranteed in terms of the ANC deployment. Nobody is guaranteed of any position. You are deployed in that position to represent the African National Congress. As and when the African National Congress deem it necessary, for whatever reason, it may remove you. For example, there is no committee which is made out of one person called Dr. Makhosi Khoza. The committee is made out of various political parties, including the ANC. And for whatever reason that the ANC may consider necessary to reconfigure that committee, and it has done now. It's not about Dr. Makhosi Khoza, it's about the entire committee, including the reps of the ANC in that committee, who acted in a manner which ourselves were disappointed. You recall that when that committee met, there were about 5 members of the ANC who did not pitch, and they explained their own reasons, which in our view, those reasons we don't agree, because they can't turn a static group of the ANC to become a DC. For whatever reasons, they had feelings about her. But we thought it's important that we must act so that we help the work of that committee to continue its oversight work. It was clear to us that if that committee were to be kept in a manner it was before, its work will not continue. It will hamper the work of that committee in terms of functioning maximally, and therefore were to reconfigure the entire committee.
I spoke a little bit earlier to the ANC Youth League, and they were adamant that the likes of Dr. Makhosi Khoza should not just be taken off the committee, but she should remove herself from the ANC because she's causing a lot more damage within the organisation, and she's really working on behalf of the opposition parties within the ANC. How do you view that?
No, Dr. Makhosi Khoza, in our view, she's a 5th column. If you lose that language in the military terms, that as part of those soldiers who shoot the rest of the soldiers but were part of the battalion. Yes. She pretends to be the member of the ANC and yet destroying the ANC from inside. But I think her handlers had hoped that when she first made these public utterances and outbursts, that the ANC will be intolerant and deal with her. Already people, her handlers, had already made a soft landing for her politically. that you leave the ANC. We know now that she's been talking to Democratic Alliance. So we're very clear about it. But we won't be pushed as the ANC because we will always be an organization that understands in terms of political discipline to deal in the context of fairness. We'll deal with her fair, but we know that already a soft landing for her politically has been that deal with the ANC, irritate the ANC to the fullest so that the ANC can give you a credible exit. The credible exit is that she must be expelled, and by now she would have, they would have hoped that you would have acted as the ANC, including their first prayer was that you must irritate the ANC before the 8th of August so that they can recall you. You are not part of the voting. We said, let's fulfill her wish. She must be part of voting. We fulfilled her wish because we're not a party of cowards. We were determined. We knew that we'll defeat that motion. And we did defeat the motion, even with her even declaring after that she voted with the opposition. So she long left the ANC from a point of view of her public utterances. But the ANC is an organization that meticulously deal with people like her so that at the end, they may not say the ANC was a coward. We're not an organization of coward. Even if we must not sound to be intolerant of her views, but we must be intolerant of her conduct. And her conduct is very clear. Makhosi Khoza, politically, she has long left the ANC. She's becoming a fifth column in the African National Congress. And of course, the ANC must protect its integrity as an organization because the essence of any organization is discipline. That's why the EFF, not far from here, Mogale City, is councillors who voted against the party line. They're now facing disciplinary action. Councillors from a sub-council called Kraaifontein in the Western Cape who voted against Democratic Alliance, who did not toe the party line. They are facing disciplinary action. So all these political parties, they may be hypocritical and chameleons when they talk about the ANC because they expect the ANC to self-destruct. It must not do things which in their own parties are not allowed.
Talk to me a little bit about not just Makhosi Khoza, but those MPs that voted and that were quite vociferous and open. We know the number is around 5. We're not 100% sure of the 5 that facing disciplinary steps, but also the wider issue of the 35 or 26 to 35 that could have voted against the ANC in this vote of no confidence.
We were very clear from a point of view of the ANC. We remember following the Concord ruling in terms of the powers of the Speaker in her determination of what form the voting should take, secret ballot or open. We were very clear our submission, and another political party in opposition, we said we'll support any action the Speaker will take. Because again, we're confident, without being arrogant, we're confident enough that we'll defeat any motion against the President, because we knew that motion was not about President Zuma, was about dislodging the African National Congress from power. But secondly, we must explain it in broad terms. What distinguished a member of the ANC is that when you join the African National Congress, somewhere in the form, you commit yourselves in what is called oath of membership. You sign an oath of membership. In that oath of membership, you hand yourself to the discipline of the African National Congress. You even say in one line, you will be loyal to the decisions of the African National Congress. So when we send members of the ANC to parliament, they don't become free agents. They don't become representatives. All of a sudden, they've got this individual conscience that they undermine their own parties. Of course, because of people, they become, for example, Dr. Makhosi Khoza. She was a delegate to the policy conference of the ANC held not far from here. She attended all the commissions. She did not even speak once. So this courage we see in public, internally in the organization, when we went to Parliament in Cape Town last week, addressed a caucus by the Secretary General and all officials of the ANC. She was present at the caucus of the ANC. She said no word in the caucus. So this courage we see is what we defined as nothing else but public stand, defined by nothing else but a fifth column to destroy the ANC. These people that we see in public speaking against the ANC, they are not bold enough to face their own organization. That's why we say she's long left. From our point of view, she's no longer the member of the ANC, but of course we'll continue to engage to understand the depth of this behavior.
What about the alliance partners that continue to speak out against the ANC? We'll speak to the SACP a little bit later in the show, and they once again in the last 24 hours called on the president to step down. How do you view that kind of behavior?
No, it's unfortunate. The first point we make is that the alliance relations are at all-time low in the history of the ANC since the unbanning, particularly since the breakthrough in 1994. And we have a responsibility, all of us, to rework that relationship, to strengthen the African National Congress, to strengthen the alliance, because a weak ANC is a weak alliance, a weak Communist Party is a weak ANC, and vice versa. Because we are bound together by historical relations and our strategic objective, which is a creation of a non-racial and non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. That's what brings us together. And therefore, we cannot break at the point of whether we want the president to go or not. The point of the ANC in terms of existence as alliance is beyond President Zuma. We can't collapse the ANC because of President Zuma. We have accepted their call that the president must step down. But because alliance partners have got a right to hold different views in whatever nature. But we're not a structure of the Communist Party. We can't act on decree of the Communist Party. We're not a substructure and so on. And therefore the ANC, as the ANC, we have a responsibility to protect our own integrity as an organization. For an example, we must institute discipline when there are members of the ANC who are acting beyond the discipline of the organization. We can't be instructed by the alliance partner not to act, as we will not do the same to the alliance partner when it acts against errant members of the Communist Party who are misbehaving.
I want us to conclude by talking about these dissenting voices that we see within the organization. There are quite a few that are doing the rounds. And can it be as simple as this is the year of the elective conference and we're heading towards that, and that's why we hear all these dissenting voices? Or does there come a point where you have to sit down and say, hey guys, we have to listen a little bit?
The organization exists beyond conferences. But politically, we must find a way, which is a matured way of how to deal with dissenter. So a dissenting voice is different from ill-discipline. Because you may deal with your Zizi Kodwa, and yet you don't understand the depth, because when you deal with dissent, you must uproot it from the organization. Hence, you must engage it politically. That's why we must be tolerant with people like Makhosi, because we don't know the strength, such boldness to attack the organization you claim in public you represent. You must understand the depth of that rot in the organization politically, so that you uproot that ill-discipline, which we call it the dissent. So it may have nothing to do with the conference, because the ANC has lived 105 years. It has had only 12th president in that context, because it is internal, because of the strength of its internal democracy. And therefore, we can't break the African National Congress because there's a conference coming. There is a January 8th. After that conference, there will be a January 8th that will be addressed by the new president, not President Zuma.
Zizi Kodwa, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you.
And talking to us. Yes, it's easy sometimes to hide away from the tough questions, but I commend you for coming in today.
I never run away. I'm not a coward.
And dealing with that. He says he's not a coward, and neither is those members within the ANC spokesperson, Zizi Kodwa. Speaking at length about Makhosi Kodwa and Makhosi Khoza, rather, and other instances that we've seen within the ruling party of late. We're going to take a short little commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more right here on the Newsroom Show.
The Pan-African Parliament, as a legislative body, could go a long way in continuing to promote women's rights in all African member states.
Moon will be elected president. A decisive win by him will provide much-needed stability in South Korea.
The Deputy President and the SADC Oversight Committee have been mandated to convene a multi-stakeholder national dialogue before elections.
5 teams are trapped in the relegation mud. These include Bloemfontein Celtic, 12th on the log, followed by Chippa United, Free State Stars and Baroka, who are second from the bottom, as well as Highlands Park, who have won only 4 matches.
We're on point with breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the advice of our elders? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Welcome back. Opposition parties have reacted with shock to the ANC's removal of its MP, Makhosi Khoza, from chairing Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee. Now, the DA says it's convinced that Khoza is being punished following her public statements in support of the vote of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma and her position towards Minister Faith Muthambi. Now, just before the Ruth Memorial Lecture last night and shortly after her axing, Dr. Khoza, spoke exclusively to us here at SABC News.
Anticipated that they were going to do that. The ANC is finding truth very hard to swallow, and the ANC would rather be comfortable with lies, would rather be comfortable with corruption, would rather be comfortable with betraying the mission of its historic mission of liberating Africans in particular, who are trapped even to this day in poverty, unemployment and inequality.
What are other reasons that were actually stated when they told you that you have been removed now?
They told me that the relationship between myself and the members of the committee has broken down irrevocably. I was also told that I'm no longer trusted because I follow my moral conscience. And if I am fired because I follow my moral conscience, so be it.
Yeah, the decision's been widely condemned to remove her. Both the Congress of South African Trade Unions and the South African Communist Party, they condemned the decision to remove Makhosi Khoza as chair of the Public Service Portfolio Committee, saying it's President Jacob Zuma who should be dealt with. Now, on Thursday, the office of the ANC's chief whip in Parliament said it had been directed to remove Khoza from a position after ANC MPs who belonged to her committee had refused to work under her. Now, to talk to us a little bit about the SACP's position on this and other matters that are playing out within the political space, we are joined by Deputy President Solly Mapaia. Very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning to our viewers too.
Just give us your view with the developments in the removal of ANC MP Makhosi Khoza from the chairpersonship of the Public Service Portfolio Committee.
Well, we think it's unfortunate that it has come to this level where Dr. Khoza has to be removed, largely because some members of the ANC did not want to cooperate with her and therefore possibly rendering the ANC ineffective in that portfolio committee if members of the ANC will not go because they don't like the chairperson. But I think what is clearly at play is the fact that there's a deeper problem inside the ANC, which the ANC must address. And Dr. Khoza is a small fish in the whole problem. The big fish is the president, and I think that they have to deal with that. Parliament has now become a proxy fight for internal divisions in the ANC and has been used as such of recent times. But the real problem is that the ANC must confront a president who has broken the oath of his own office, who has broken the moral and revolutionary discipline of our movement, who have lowered the basic standards that all of us seek to uphold, particularly looking up to him as the president, and therefore dealing with Dr. Khoza and perhaps other MPs in this form is just to create an escape route. And I think that it's not going to be helpful to the ANC. They must confront the real problem. They must remove President Zuma, and that will allow them the possibility to address challenges that are facing the ANC, challenges of people close to the ANC and the president who are corrupt, who are looting state system, who are capturing the state organization and therefore rendering our own collective incapacity to lead the South African society, given the mandate we got from the elections. That's where the crux of the problem is. And I think that That's what should be addressed, and that's what we've raised in our statement as well.
Your continued calls around state capture, around the president and so forth, it's having real effects on the alliance partners and the relationships going forward. How do you view this relationship going forward? What would you like to see happen?
We certainly want a strong alliance, because a strong alliance will be able to effectively drive a program to transform the lives of our people, to transform our economy, to make sure that everyone in South Africa can feel proud that they belong to this particular country. And a weakened alliance incapacitates us from doing that. That is why the strategic issue at the moment for the ANC is to focus on dealing with the state capture, because the state capture goes deeper than just the president taking decisions on behalf of a grouping, which has been demonstrated in the recent cabinet reshuffle. It goes into state-owned enterprises, which have been effectively handed over to the Guptas and a coterie of their friends and the friends of the president and his son. And therefore, those state-owned enterprises are a strategic leverage that we need to use to transform our society, to develop our country, particularly the rural areas and the townships and so forth. Those are the underdeveloped sections of our society. But if they've been taken out of the mandate of the ANC, and therefore the alliance, which uses the ANC as the center tool to run its objectives and programs, that becomes ineffective. And therefore, that is why we feel that the strategic issue is to resolve the state capture problem, and therefore to deal with corruption associated with state capture, rather than go on the sideways, the peripheral things, removal of chairpersons of committees and so forth. There have been many other West people, for instance. There's been a Comrade Mdu, for instance, who beat up a woman and so forth. They are saying the law must take its course. Instead of taking strong action there, we must be able to take strong actions on areas of moral decadency as a movement, and not be unequivocal when it comes to that. And we have not seen that. And I think that this posture on the MPs and Dr. Khoza is just too frivolous for us to be concerned much about. We need the ANC to refocus and allow those comrades to express themselves freely, but deal with the main problems.
You say the president needs to be removed, and that will be the start of things getting better. The president in turn says you as the Communist Party no longer deal with issues of communism. What do you say to that?
Well, we have responded to him on numerous occasions. Firstly, he has long left the Communist Party. He doesn't understand the program of the Communist Party to date. And we have engaged with him inside the ANC. But outside, we can simply say, if he engages us appropriately, he will know that true communists will never allow corruption. True communists will never allow handover of our national sovereignty to a grouping of friends or business friends or associates. And true communists will never allow state capture of our country given by the president to his friends. And therefore, true communists will never allow moral decadence at the extreme levels that he shows. And therefore, we expect him to criticize us. We have no problem with his criticism, except that in many instances, his criticism is devoid of the truth.
I want to talk to you about corruption. Of course, is an evil that is clear to see in our society. It is happening, it is there. It's a problem. We deal with another problem in South Africa, and that is corporate gangsterism. But you guys are not as vocal on corporate gangsterism as you are on corruption within government. Why is that? I'd like to give you an example. We've got 133 cases of collusion and price fixing in front of the Competition Commission, dealing with price fixing on bread, milk, margarine, things that the poor live on day to day. They pay double, triple the prices because these prices are fixed. Why are you guys not as vocal about these things?
No, we've been very vocal about those. In fact, we have taken up campaigns on those matters. In fact, perhaps more than any organized formation in this country, we've been far on those questions, including beyond what the points that we have mentioned, including into the financial sector, protecting the people who have been evicted from their houses. Some of their houses have been sold for 10 rand. That is why we're supporting even the class action taken by Ilungelele to Human Rights Foundation against the banks. So we've been doing more than that. Of course, the issue has been that the reporting generally has been about certain differences in the political sphere. But those are our primary preoccupation as an organization. Those are the core of our campaigns. And that is why, for instance, you'll also know that we played an important role in the development of the National Credit Act that sought to protect the consumers against this kind of behavior. We have launched massive campaigns against high price or even of energy, food and so forth. So we have been right on that particular campaign platform, and we'll continue to do that. We have condemned both corporate corruption as well as public corruption.
Do you feel that now in the media, you have, in the media space specifically, considering ownership and how the media works in South Africa, that you have almost become an alliance partner of capital a little bit?
No, we have never been that. We launched a campaign for transformation of the financial sector, which is the core monopoly capital in this country. In fact, you'll know that South African capital has largely, or economy, has largely financialized. And when we launched this particular campaign, we didn't have many friends. But it's a strategic campaign that no one wants to actually take up. And it's us in the Communist Party. We actually even established a coalition, the Financial Sector Campaigns Coalition, that fight for the transformation of that particular sector, the diversification of that particular sector, making sure that we can have cooperative banks, we can have People's Bank, we can have community banks. That campaign has been led by us. And we've been struggling actually to get government, including some of those who have become the new spokesperson of economic transformation, to come on board and join this particular campaign. In fact, at some point, we were even told that we want to create spaza banks when we wanted the transformation of the financial sector. So when it comes to campaigns, don't touch the Communist Party, because we've been right at the forefront of the campaigns against monopoly capital. And we know monopoly capital remains the strategic enemy of our revolution. But we have rejected the insinuations to try and give it color in order to revert back against our non-racial posture as a society. And therefore, as you know, we are the first non-racial organization, not only in South Africa, but on the African continent. And therefore, we think it's very important to fight for an inclusive South African society, a common nationhood, and therefore deal with all the wrongs that are particularly the system of capitalism that brings about exploitation and inequality in society as the primary struggle. And that's the struggle that we are involved in, which is class struggle.
I thank you for coming in today. That's the first Deputy President of the South African Communist Party, Mr. Solly Mapaila. Thank you once again for being with us. Always nice to have you with us. You're watching the Newsroom show. We're going to take a short commercial break. Heavyweight stuff today on the show. We'll see you shortly.
This story is about what happens when we put our differences aside and we come together as a human race.
Salt makes its way out of the kitchen into the art studio.
Normally, you know, salt is for food and stuff, but then here's salt.
The past couple of months, I've grown so much, and I'm just ready to impart what I've learned to the next Miss South Africa.
I wasn't expecting this. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm feeling so overwhelmed.
For your weekly dose of entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1. We take an in-depth look of all your stories of the day across the world.
Last month, Mkhwebane said that the bank had failed in its duties to protect the public by not ensuring that ABSA repaid an apartheid-era bailout given to the failed bank, Bank Corp. The rand fell nearly 2% on her remarks.
My effort, in my opinion, is going to be to build a Zimbabwe that I believe in.
as opposed to remaking a Zimbabwe of the past that I cannot do anyway. So I'm absolutely clear on this.
We need to start showing more commitment by government that they are committed to working with business, and therefore that should start to stimulate confidence, and with confidence comes investment, and with investment hopefully comes growth.
Stay tuned to Primetime News every day from 18 hours.
Welcome back here with Newsroom now. Social media, of course, has transformed from being a tool used to connect with friends to a platform for raising awareness about day-to-day issues, from politics to even criminal activity. Now, Tumi Sole is the founder and creator of the hashtag Country Duty on Twitter. Now, this hashtag's been used to highlight current affairs, from politics to gender-based violence even. This hashtag highlights social media activism. The question is, does social media activism work? Now, Tumi Sole is with us here to talk about this. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, and good morning to all the viewers at home.
Great to have you with us. I love the work that you do. I know it's not always easy, but how did Country Duty come about?
You know, I always actually get this question. Country Duty came about during the uncertain times where there were statements being issued by government at very awkward times. And I think you would recall that very well. But it would be remiss of me not to mention that people on Twitter had already been on I would say, Country Duty, because they would call it guarding of the country and stuff like that. But how it blew up, in my view, was when I coined this hashtag while reporting for duty or guarding the country, and I requested people to come in and report using memes and stuff while we wait for an 11 o'clock presser or anything for that matter. And that tweet really, you know, blew up and it became big. And the question really that I had to then ask myself is, does it end here while we wait for statements or not? And that's where I actually saw an opportunity for us to engage and interact, and that's how, in my view, it came about.
Now, the police minister, Fikile Mbalula, he's blocked you guys already. Is that a positive for you?
Well, it's unfortunate, in my view, and I'll tell you why I think it's unfortunate. Using Country Duty, I put up the KFC assault video at the time, and you know, the people who were the perpetrators were unknown, in my view, at that particular time. And I requested tweets using the very same hashtag to tag SABC and the minister. And people did exactly that, and he responded as he ought to have, and he did so positively. And he then said, I've asked the police station to look into this matter, and I think a few hours later he confirmed that there were arrests. And we were working hand in hand. I DM'd him some of the information that I had, and it was all right. I think insofar as social media and interaction, and I think the breakdown in the relationship, and I use that loosely because, you know, social media is interactive in that sense, was when the Mduduzi Manana issue came about. And this is also something that has been intensively discussed on Country Duty. And I asked him, and I said, when are you arresting him, you know, or sending the subs? And that was the end of our relationship. That was short.
Was it?
Unfortunately.
Okay, well, we've done some stuff about ministers being out late at night, so maybe there's a button there. Anyhow, let's not go down that road. Let's talk about social media activism quickly. Some call it selectivism. Does it work?
I believe it does. And I'll just throw one or two examples in that regard. The KFC assault, for example, that's one that came about. It was an initiative, I think, that was, as I said, pointed out. SABC came in, the arrests were done, and the case is still ongoing. And we now know that one of the suspects has prior, you know, warnings and the likes, and that, in my view, is a positive. One other example that I'd like to point out is the KZN school assault. That is also one thing that came about, and it was already on the timeline. You know, if I were to be honest, people tagged me, and I had to exercise a value judgment. whether I put it up and get the support from the people, because it also involved minors. But what I then did is, listen, this has to go up. Hopefully, the Department of Education and authorities will pick it up. And they did. And eventually, we now know that the young man has been arrested, the lady is receiving support, and more importantly, and unfortunately so, this incident had happened as long as November last year. And I think without social media, that information would have not been known, let alone actions been taken.
Talk to me quickly. I would like to gauge an opinion on the following.
Sure.
Because you work in that space. We've now seen the Grace Mugabe incident and of course, the Engels model young lady, Gabriella.
Yes.
She's now being represented by AfriForum.
Yes.
And they are quick to jump to the defense of, let's call it, those that are fighting the enemies.
Yes.
But when it comes to fighting the likes of the KFC assault, they never come to the Kolini, to the rescue of the Kolini people. So forth. How do you view that kind of selective activism?
I think it must be called out, to be frank with you. And I think, you know, social media, for me in particular, presents a great space for interaction, more importantly, solution-driven type of solutions. So insofar as being selective, and I also have to mention that, you know, due to political affiliations, for example, some people would feel that certain political parties are not being discussed through country duty, for example, and stuff like that. But I just wanted to put it out there. I think it's for people on Twitter, for example, to be able to put those issues up using the very same hashtag and let us have a constructive debate and call it out as such. So for AfriForum, I think they need to really take a stance and they need to call out the likes of perpetrators in KFC and do so harshly. More importantly, they also need to come to the aid of other people who are also infringed insofar as accessing justice and the likes. And at least in my view, that's when we'll take them serious. Until then, they remain selective.
Let's just look at a tweet quickly. This is what a guy, Richard Van Zyl, is tweeting. He says to you, country duty. Wait, what? AfriForum is seeking justice for an abused woman. Isn't this the job of Mbalula Figile? Now you're going to be in the crosshairs again. Just answer that question.
I think this is a very important tweet, but I think it also has a few legal implications so far it's concerned. The state has an obligation, obviously, to investigate, and this is now the SABS, and effect an arrest. This matter is complicated insofar as it involves a diplomat, if you may, and AfriForum stance, really, they can only, in my view, take a stance if the National Prosecuting Authority issues a certificate of non-prosecution. They have not done so. I think it's good that they are on standby, but it's very important that they also observe and at least believe in the system, because at the end of the day, you know, they won't be able to do much until then.
And not do so selectively. Tumi, thanks for 100%. Coming in today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Tumi Sole, it's Sole, ne?
Sole, yes.
Sole is he's the founder of #CrimeTweetDuty. There you see it. Yes, go and interact with that. If you want to go and bash somebody, go do it on his platform. Anyhow, let's go over to Kendall now. He's just about ready to get off his phone and on air.
Thank you very much, Eben. Making sure that social media is kept abreast of what's going on right now. With Jody and I are going to be chatting about the Springboks. But before we bring him into the picture, Springbok coach Alistair Coetzee has opted for continuity with his starting 15 for Saturday's Rugby Championship Test match against Argentina at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Port Elizabeth. Coetzee made 3 changes to the team that beat France in the 3rd Test match in Johannesburg at the end of June. The 2 main changes are Uzair Kasim starting as 8th man in place of injured Warren Whiteley, the captain, and Kuni Oosthuizen replacing Ruan Dreya, who replaced Frans Malherbe at heighted prop. Now, in other sporting news, all about the Rugby Championship, Argentina have named a strong side to face the Springboks in PE on Saturday. There are 3 changes to the team that beat Georgia in the June internationals. Agustin Kribi will captain Los Pumas, leading the pack from the hooker berth, and scrum half Martin Landajo wins his 70th Test cap as he partners with the equally experienced Nicolas Sanchez as their halfback pairing. And head coach Daniel Urcade believes that he's picked a balanced side for Argentina's first Rugby Championship match of 2017. It will be the 25th time that South Africa and Argentina play each other. Now, like I promised you, South Africa does kick off its rugby championship campaign against a very dangerous Los Pumas side that will still have very fond memories of what they did to the Springboks back in 2015. Now, of course, the Springboks will be playing this match in Port Elizabeth at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, a place where they've played 4 matches and have not lost a single one. And they will be using that to bolster their confidence along with the 3-0 series whitewash against France not so long ago. Now, I'll not get ahead of myself. I'll bring Jody in on this one because that's exactly why I've asked you to come in. Because, Jody, it's been a while since you and I spoke Springboks. The last couple of times we did speak Springboks, it wasn't the best of times. But now we're on the up and up, and welcome back. And what do you make of the side?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think Alistair said it when he told everybody at the news conference yesterday. Continuity will probably be the way forward for the South African team. I think he didn't have a lot of options. I think he went with the guys that did duty against France. The first thing I think they should do is forget about France. They learned some valuable lessons in there, even though they won 3-0. I don't think it was the best French team that the Springboks played again. And on the other hand, I also don't think the Springboks made a lot of mistakes that they won't be able to afford to make it against a team like Argentina or in a tournament like the Rugby Championship. So I'm looking forward to this game. I think the next phase of Springbok rugby starts now on Saturday in Port Elizabeth. And obviously, we spoke about the players. I think there's a few players that we need to mention. I think this will probably be make or break for Zaire Kasim at number 8, maybe the second test in Argentina as well. And then obviously, I think the last 15-20 minutes, I think a lot of people will be expecting to see a young Cohen Bosch, who a lot of people are touting to be the next superstar in South African rugby, whether he'll get some game time, depending on the match situation, I think, as well.
Of course, going into this weekend, it's the 100th test matches played in the Rugby Championship, which used to be called the Tri-Nations for Australia, New Zealand, as well as the Springboks. A very big weekend, in fact, a very big season. Like you said, it's a new chapter that they're going into.
Yeah, and I think it's not going to be an easy game. Let's not kid ourselves, Kendall. I don't think the Argentinians are going to make it easy at all for South Africa. And you spoke about 2015. Let's not forget that they beat South Africa last year in Nelspruit.
That's true.
South Africa won the away game in Argentina, so they'll be coming here with expectations. We mentioned you mentioned in the insert the team. I think the duel will probably be at number 10 with the experienced Nicolas Sanchez and Elton Jantjies, who a lot of people are saying still hasn't found his feet at international rugby. It will be his 15th test tomorrow. So I think both number 10s will play a pivotal role for the sides. But it's going to start up front. We know how well the Argentinians they do in their scrums. If they are able to dominate up front, I think they'll be able to put South Africa under pressure, and it's going to make it easier for either Sanchez or Jantjies to dictate the game.
Let's talk a little bit about the tighted prop position. Koenie Oosthuizen comes in for Ruan Dreyer. Koenie Oosthuizen has been shown up to come a little short in Super Rugby. Look, do you think that he's going to be able to withstand the kind of pressure he'll be under against a superb scrumming nation like Argentina?
Yeah, I think he had a decent Super Rugby season this year. Previous years, there was a lot of question marks around him. The thing that I like about Koenie, and I thought where he was utilised properly, was as an impact player, and he brought energy to the scrums the last 20 minutes that I thought really worked well for the Springboks. Now he gets the starting opportunity. To be honest with you, with Frans Malherbe being injured, and I don't think Ruan Dreyer was quite ready for international rugby. They don't have a lot of options. But then on the other hand, you know, if things do go pear-shaped and Koenie doesn't perform well, they have an experienced guy like Pravin Gordhan, who's played 28 tests for the Springboks, to replace him. So I think this will be a stern test for Koenie. Also how he combines with Malcolm Marx and Bisum Tawarira, because remember, when he comes on, normally the last 20 minutes they replace the whole front row.
Yeah.
And now he'll be playing with guys who hasn't played with in a long time, even though they've had a training camp for the past 10 days.
Jody, one of the things that I found very interesting is how at the end of all of this, at the 15th of November, 2023 World Cup bid, the winner gets announced: Ireland, France, South Africa. How important do you think the results are? How important do you think the way we manage our hosting of the matches is going to be for that particular decision?
To be honest with you, Kendall, I think it's going to be touch and go between South Africa and France. I don't think Ireland has quite the infrastructure to host a Rugby World Cup. So I think France are really keen. They hosted it in 2007. Yeah. We hosted it in 1995. So they'll also still have a lot of that infrastructure. We were lucky that we had the 2010 World Cup in terms of having world-class stadiums and stuff like that, and knowing how to host big events. So I think it's going to come down to money. I think the government has given more than 2 billion rand to South African rugby or guarantee that they'll invest more than 2 billion rand should we get the rights. From a South African perspective, I really hope we get it. I think there's no reason we should get it. But like on the field, the French are going to be tough opponents.
Now, let's talk a little bit about transformation, because the big perennial elephant in the room in South African sports is transformation. Alistair Coetzee let go a massive opportunity to further the agenda of transformation by not choosing Siya Kolisi to be the captain. He chose Eben Etzebeth ahead of Siya, who's Eben's captain at franchise club level out at the Stormers. What do you make of that and how it plays out in this instance?
Yeah, let's just look at the circumstances quickly. Warren Whiteley, the third test against France, pulled out at the 99th minute. And, you know, Alistair had to make a call. If we talk about transformation, Kendall, I don't think selecting a black Springbok captain should come at the 99th minute. It should come because of planning, it should come because of form, it should come because of a lot of things. I think Siya would have been a good candidate, but just the circumstance I don't think would have been the way forward. I think in the future he might get the opportunity, and also I think Eben did well, and he has the support of a guy like Siya Kolisi, because let's not forget they are very good friends off the field as well, and they understand each other on the field. They were actually, I think Eben was best man at Siya's wedding, so they have that friendship and they have that understanding on and off the field, and I'm sure that Siya supports Eben all the way. But I don't think when it comes to selecting as the first Springbok captain, it must come, you know, at the 99th minute because your regular captain got injured. I think it should become because he's the best player and because of planning, and that he deserves to be there.
Well put, very well put. Lastly, but not last, last but not least, a prediction for tomorrow?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to start up front. I think the Argentinians are going to make it very tough for us. I think they're going to exploit our weaknesses, especially in the scrums. I think we have a couple of weaknesses. If South Africa manages to pass that test and dominate, I think it will probably be the Springboks by 14. Otherwise, if it doesn't go our way, I think Argentina by 7.
There we go. Jody Hendricks, thank you so much. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
And there's a whole lot more that you wanted to say, but we'll make time for that come next week. There you have it. Jody says it might go Eben's way, but Eben might be getting that 100 Rand. It might also go the other way, where the 100 Rand will be going to Elvis Presley. More about all of that a little later. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with more news at the top of the hour. You're watching Newsroom.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the advice of our elders? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Hello and a warm welcome to PM News, and we're broadcasting live from Johannesburg.
4 decades later, the family is still seeking closure.
We need the truth, and the truth must be told.
Children often go undiagnosed because they are hidden away. About 1 million people in South Africa live with autism.
Creative recycling at play.
Mosaic has been around forever. I just had to find a new, fresh way to put and a new spin to put on it. So I decided why not recycled cans.
Stay tuned to PM News for all your news updates every Saturday and Sunday from 1500 hours.
What guides us? Is it something you can see?
We need deliverance from sin, because God never
Hear?
carry on working to spread the message
Feel?
to the whole world.
Or touch? What leads us onto greater experiences? Is it the words of our sacred texts? The advice of our elders? Or is it the actions of our people? The strength of our beliefs? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
We are certain in giving an update on all leading stories.
So you see South Africa has a yellow palette which indicates a warning color on this index.
We are first to give market updates.
And the more the currency is under pressure, also our costs go up.
We always give you the best guests to keep you informed and sharpen you for the day ahead.
You got to find something people are willing to pay for, that they need now, and they have the money to pay for it. The minute you tick those three boxes, you're in business.
Sports Roundup to fill you in.
985 is not the end. For me, it's going faster than the 985 and keep improving the record.
Never start your day without Morning Live if you need a perfect dress guide for the day.
Parts of KZN into Kokstad, we're seeing those 4 patches. Please drive carefully.
Set the agenda for the day with Morning Live.
Africa is constantly getting new technologies, and with that comes new terms.
Massive, open, online university. And primarily what they are doing is they're established in the community, so they're well established within the Soweto community.
Internet of Things also covers small sensors, so you can do like home security, motion detectors, IP cameras.
On Network, we simplify these terms for you. We also have new gadgets and social media.
When it falls on the grounds and then the battery, everything falls off, people just put it all together and then your phone is back in shape.
The Valega app, we initially started off by doing this manually.
The internet is actually my favorite fashion invention of all time.
That's Network with Ms. Pumelele Zondi every Sunday at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
Yes, a very good morning to you. This is the final hour here in the newsroom. I'm Elvis Preslin.
I'm Kendall Muhammad.
Now, we will be with you until 12 o'clock. Now, today I'll focus on the ANC removing Dr. Makhosi Khoza, of course, chairing the Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee, due to which they say is an irretrievable breakdown between relations there.
Well, I can't imagine why it would not be seen as irretrievable. It's been going one way and one way only. But we want to find out from you, was the sacking of Dr. Makhosi Khoza justified or not?
Well, there's the poll up there. 429 votes in. 75% of you are saying no, it was not justified. Only 25% are saying yes, it was.
Close to 300 votes saying yes, absolutely, the sacking of Makhosi Khoza was justified. That's a lot of traction this question is getting, and a lot of thoughts on it. Which, speaking of which, let's see what is being said on the matter.
Masutu says, failure to take the kind of criticism reflects poor leadership and dictatorship, says Masutu.
Oscar Nkamuheling says, ANC can fool us now, but come 2019 elections, people will speak volumes. Hashtag Makhosi Khoza.
Well, there you have it. You can keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. But another focus point, Kendall, of course, we've been busy with it this entire week. The First Lady of Zimbabwe, Grace Mugabe, in hot water. And it seems there's a blank check available to somebody.
We woke up this morning to hearing to headlines about a blank check being made available to Gabriela Engels. And we want to find out from you, what do you make of this alleged payment offer to Grace Mugabe's victim?
Does she have the money? Somebody would argue, yes, she does, because she just bought a 45 million rand mansion here in Johannesburg.
Wow.
Well, there you have it. So let's take a look at what you are telling us. Thomas says, I was also going to try R1 million and negotiate from there. Also some piece of prime land in Zimbabwe. That's another way to go.
Yeah, Strike says, give the girl 10 million. Either way, Grace will gracefully go back to Harare without setting foot in the South African court.
Well, she will come back. She's got a 45 million mansion strike, so she'll definitely be back. But we're also asking you a sporting question this morning based on the Springboks, the Boks playing this weekend, right?
Absolutely. Rugby Championship time, and it's going to be the 100th test match that the Springboks, Australia and New Zealand will be playing in this championship. Argentina, of course, joined much later, so their 100th test in this competition will come much later. But I want to find out from you about tomorrow and going forward. Will the Springboks resurgence continue this weekend?
Well, Mashlamola says the Boks do better when there's less politics in their sport. If it continues that way, it's winning all the way.
Mashlamola, unfortunately, politics has been part of South African sport since time immemorial. Nazim Grootboom says, go Bokke, go Bokke. The Springboks will give the Pumas no chance.
Well, let's hope they give him a pummeling. That's what we wait for. But let's get down to business in the final hour. It's time for your news headlines. ANC Chief Whip Jackson Mthembu says that Dr. Makhosi Khoza's removal from chairing Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee will not hamper the work of Parliament. The Police Minister Fikile Mbalula announced a red alert on South Africa's borders to prevent Zimbabwe's First Lady Grace Mugabe from fleeing the country. And 2 terrorist attacks in the Spanish cities of Barcelona and Cambrils has killed at least 13 people, while a landslide in the northeast of the Democratic Republic of Congo claims 40 lives. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get there, let's find out from Kendo Makamate what's happening with Gavin Hunt. He seems like he's in the hunt, Kendall.
Oh, yes, definitely in the hunt for back-to-back PSL wins, league wins. We'll see what happens. They start tonight, and we'll see whether they're going to be able to turn it all on again like they did last year when Bidvest won the PSL league. Good morning to you. This is what I've got for you in this hour.
We want to do better. We want to improve. We want to try and make more points than we did last season.
Gavin Hunt, the coach of defending league champions Bidvest, is looking to do better than last year, starting with a season-opening encounter against Cape Town City FC tonight.
While at the same time we are looking, do we have a chance to qualify for CHAN 2018 in Kenya next year?
And not so confident coach Thabo Sidong states that regardless of the outcome against Zambia this weekend, player development will be the winner.
I'm happy to note that our balance is right. Zia Kassim, he's played, at 8 before.
And Alistair Kutsia awards Cheetahs loose forward Zia Kassim a place in the starting lineup as 8th man, as one of the 3 changes to the Springboks for the Rugby Championship match against Argentina. All this and more we've got for you later on in the Sports Bulletin. Be sure to stick around for it around about 11:40 or so. For now, it's back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour, breaking news. The High Court in Pretoria has dismissed the application by the former Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, to have the court rule that he's not authorized to interfere in the Gupta family's dispute with the 4 major banks. Gordhan brought the application while he was still the Finance Minister after the bank's moves between December 2015 and April last year. The 4 banks closed the accounts of the Gupta-owned companies, which prompted the family's request that the minister intervene. ANC Member of Parliament Dr. Makhosi Khoza has called on South Africans to realize the importance of implementing and defending the Constitution. She was delivering the Ruth First Memorial Lecture at Wits University last night. Khoza's speech came hours after Rob acting as the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration.
We adopted the Constitution of the Republic
out in public for the first time, just hours after being removed. But first, her dream of a non-sexist, equitable and non-racial South Africa that Ruth First stood for.
I was just wondering, what would Ruth First be saying now? When we have the African National Congress Women's League that would stand up and defend a minister who is not just violating the rights of women, but who is using the common weapon, that most men use on women, and that is attacking the woman's womb.
Dr. Khoza says the woman's voice needs to be heard.
We need to reflect as South Africa and begin to ask the difficult questions. Are we, as a liberation movement, building this country, or are we breaking this country? Seeing truth being persecuted the same way as it was when Ruth first was assassinated in 1982, done by my own comrades, who are now persecuting truth, who are saying, we want to go after those who speak truth, because to them, truth has become so uncomfortable.
In a letter, the ruling party has outlined Khoza's sins, from her public utterances calling on the president to step down and her views against the NPs against the no-confidence motion in the president, to failed attempts by the leadership to discipline her on this, among others. SABC News, Wits University in Johannesburg.
Now, opposition parties have reacted with shock to the ANC's removal of its MP, Makhosi Khoza, from chairing Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee. The Democratic Alliance says it's convinced that Khoza is being punished following her public statements in support of the vote of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma and her position towards Minister Faith Mutambi. Just before the Ruth First Memorial Lecture and shortly after, acting Dr. Khoza spoke exclusively to the SABC News.
Anticipated that they were going to do that. The ANC is finding truth very hard to swallow, and the ANC would rather be comfortable with lies, would rather be comfortable with corruption, would rather be comfortable with betraying the mission of its historic mission of liberating Africans in particular, who are trapped even to this day in poverty, unemployment and inequality.
What are other reasons that were actually stated when they told you that you have been removed now?
They told me that the relationship between myself and the members of the committee has broken down irrevocably. I was also told that I'm no longer trusted because I follow my moral conscience. And if I am fired because I follow my moral conscience, so be it.
Meanwhile, ANC spokesperson Zizi Kodwa says Makhosi Khoza has long left the African National Congress. Kodwa says the ANC must not be seen to be intolerant of Khoza's views, but intolerant of her actions.
You are deployed in that position to represent the African National Congress. As and when the African National Congress deem it necessary, for whatever reason, it may remove you. For example, there is no committee which is made out of one person called Dr. Makhosi Khoza. The committee is made out of various political parties, including the ANC. And for whatever reason that the ANC may consider necessary to reconfigure that committee, and it has done now. It's not about Dr. Makhosi Khoza, it's about the entire committee, including the reps of the ANC in that committee, who acted in a manner which ourselves were disappointed. You recall that when that committee met, there were about 5 members of the ANC who did not pitch, and they explained their own reasons, which in our view, those reasons we don't agree, because they can't turn a static group of the ANC to become a DC. For whatever reasons, they had feelings about her. But we thought it's important that we must act so that we help the work of that committee to continue its oversight work. It was clear to us that if that committee were to be kept in a manner it was before, its work will not continue. It will hamper the work of that committee in terms of functioning maximally, and therefore were to reconfigure the entire committee.
I spoke a little bit earlier to the ANC Youth League, and they were adamant that the likes of Dr. Makhosi Khoza should not just be taken off the committee, but she should remove herself from the ANC because she's causing a lot more damage within the organisation, and she's really working on behalf of opposition, of the opposition parties within the ANC. How do you view that?
No, Dr. Makhosi Khoza, in our view, she's a fifth column. if you lose that language in the military terms, that as part of those soldiers who shoot the rest of the soldiers but were part of the battalion.
Yes.
She pretends to be the member of the ANC and yet destroying the ANC from inside. But I think her handlers had hoped that when she first made these public utterances and outbursts, that the ANC will be intolerant and deal with her. Already people, her handlers, had already made a soft landing for her politically. That you leave the ANC, we know now that she's been talking to Democratic Alliance. So we're very clear about it, but we won't be pushed as the ANC because we will always be an organization that understands in terms of political discipline to deal in the context of fairness. We'll deal with her fair, but we know that already a soft landing for her politically has been that deal with the ANC, irritate the ANC to the fullest so that the ANC can give you a credible exit. The credible exit is that she must be expelled, and by now she would have, they would have hoped that you would have acted as the ANC, including their first prayer was that you must irritate the ANC before the 8th of August so that they can recall you. You are not part of the voting. We said, let's fulfill her wish. She must be part of voting. We fulfilled her wish because we're not a party of cowards. We were determined, we knew that we'll defeat that motion. And we did defeat the motion, even with her even declaring after that she voted with the opposition. So she long left the ANC from a point of view of her public utterances. But the ANC is an organization that meticulously deal with people like her so that at the end, they may not say the ANC was a coward. We're not an organization of coward. Even if we must not sound to be intolerant of her views, but we must be intolerant of her conduct. And her conduct is very clear. Makhosi Khoza, politically, she has long left the ANC. She's becoming a fifth column in the African National Congress. And of course, the ANC must protect its integrity as an organization because the essence of any organization is discipline. That's why the EFF, not far from here, Mogale City, is councillors who voted against the party line. They're now facing disciplinary action. Councillors from a sub-council called Kraaifontein in the Western Cape who voted against Democratic Alliance, who did not toe the party line. They are facing disciplinary action. So all these political parties, they may be hypocritical and chameleons when they talk about the ANC because they expect the ANC to self-destruct. It must not do things which in their own parties are not allowed.
That is the reason why we're asking you this question in our poll today. Was the sacking really justified by the ANC of Makhosi Khoza? So far, the numbers suggest 429 votes in 75%. 3/4 of you are saying no, it was not justified. Whatever we are being told today by the ANC, of course, the ANC Youth League also in studio. But right now, the 37th SADC summit, which got underway earlier this week, continues today and falls on the double troika. The double troika focuses on peace, security and political stability in the region. Top of the agenda is the political situation in Lesotho, the impasse in the DRC, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. Our reporters Patricia Fasahi and Mweli Masalela are covering the summit in Pretoria, and they join us now. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning and welcome to the 37th SADC Summit right here in the heart of the capital city, Pretoria. Now, the summit started earlier this week, and the focus today is on the minister's double troika. Of course, the double troika was held ahead of the double troika summit and the SADC summit that is underway here in Pretoria. And the focus is on the security situation in the SADC region, of course focusing on some of the countries where there are problem areas. We're talking about Lesotho, the DRC, Mozambique, and of course Swaziland, where there are problems that we have seen, of course, relating to security, peace and political stability in these countries. So of course today the focus falls on these countries to see what amicable solutions can be reached to try and solve the political impasses in those countries. And of course, this in light with the long-lasting resolutions to achieve stability in the SADC region. And in Lesotho, we know that the focus is on the new government in terms of how this government will work towards achieving a lasting peace, security and stability in the Mountain Kingdom, of course. And as we know that in the DRC, they have failed to hold elections as planned, but we have heard earlier this week that, of course, they have reached a decision that the elections in the DRC will be held in April next year. So it will be interesting to find out what the double troika will eventually, finally decide on that particular matter. Do they stay on the resolution that was adopted to have the elections in April next year in the DRC, or whether they conclude on a different decision? Swaziland also, of course, makes headlines. We'll focus on that as well. Mozambique, and we know that, of course, Angola is also scheduled to go to the polls very soon. So those are the countries where the focus is falling on for the double troika here at Durko at the SADC summit. But I am not alone. I am joined by my colleague Mweli Masilela, all the way from the Nelspruit office, who is covering the summit with me. Now, Mweli, you have done a lot of coverage in Swaziland itself. You have spoken to the king there. Can you take us through some of the important points, the highlights, the burning issues that are creating a little bit of political instability and disagreements in Swaziland?
Good morning, Patricia and the viewers. Yes, as we have said, I've covered quite a number of stories in Swaziland. What I can tell you is that you'll know that before the king took over as SADC chair, there were some opposition, or people were not happy about the king taking over. Of course, citing a number of reasons. Mainly, they are saying that they are not happy that Swaziland is not an electoral democracy. What these pro-democracy groups who were protesting to say that the king must not take over as chair, what they are saying is that they want Swaziland to be a political, a multi-party system. So that is not happening because political parties were banned. You'll remember the late King Sopuza II proclaimed a decree in 1973, which sort of came with a situation whereby political parties are not allowed to participate in elections. But as you have said, before this summit, we had a conversation with the King of Swaziland on these issues to say that what is his response on the people who are saying that Swaziland is not democratic. From his side, he's maintaining that Swaziland is democratic, putting forward the reason that in terms of the constitution, it is a constitution that was put in place by the people of Swaziland. So he's arguing that the system that is currently used to run the country is the system that was chosen by the people. So he went as far as saying that he's advising people who are complaining about the way Swaziland is run to sort of visit the kingdom, so that perhaps that is when they will understand this system. Another point is that the king is arguing that Swaziland is a democratic country, using the fact that there are elections. In those elections, people in the constituencies are allowed to perhaps choose 55 members of the 65 members of the House of Assembly. So he's saying that that in fact shows that people are also allowed to participate in that system. But then still, those pro-democratic groups are not happy. As we know that tomorrow we are expecting a protest here at the SADC venue, whereby the pro-democratic groups from Swaziland are expected to join this SADC Democracy Forum, which will be protesting tomorrow outside this building. Of course, they are raising the very same concerns to say that SADC was established to focus on these issues of peace and stability, and also make sure that there is no violation of human rights. But they are saying that these issues are continuing to happen. For instance, a year back, there was the commission, the AU commission, that went on an oversight visit in Swaziland to find out, after the concerns that were raised by the people, the chair, the Panzitlakula, find out that yes, there is some progress made, but there are still concerns when it comes to media freedom, there are still concerns when it comes to violation of human rights, there are still people who are in exile, there are still political prisoners. So she recommended that those issues must be looked at by the Swaziland government. So I think that it will be interesting to see as to what is going to happen here in terms of decisions. As you all know, that even political parties like the ANC, after the policy conference, they did mention that there should be more focus on assisting Swaziland to be a multi-party system where political parties will have a say in terms of the running of the country.
Now, some of the groups that have raised concerns in terms of how Swaziland is ran, the issues on democracy in the country, they have been focusing over the years on the issue of social issues, high unemployment, poverty in Swaziland that we know of, saying that, but the people on the ground are not empowered by the monarch there. And I'm sure you have spoken to people as well about that.
Yes, you'll know that in Swaziland sometimes it is very difficult to get the views of the people on the ground. Even when we go there to do some stories, some people are reluctant to talk. But as I said, that from the side of government, they will always say that no, this is a system that was chosen by the people, and they always call the people to the People's Parliament, which happens at the King's Royal Residence, where they engage the people. They're saying that that process is open to everyone. So as we are touching on the issue of poverty and all that, I think that came out as well on the interview we had with the King as the SABC, to say that what is it that is being done to improve the lives of the people in Swaziland. Of course, he cited that in terms of tertiary education, they've been assisting over the years in making sure that it is free. And he said that this is something that is not only now, they are not only now focusing on tertiary education, they are now moving also to basic education, that is primary schools and high schools as well, because from what he said is that this position of him chairing the SADC, it helped because it made them realize that there are some points where they can improve. So now there's, for example, the issue of the establishment of a SADC university, because those are some of the points of focus on him as he was chair of SADC, that kind of university will not only help Swaziland, but also all the SADC member states in terms of now providing vocational skills, because the argument is that many people are now focusing on in terms of getting employment after finishing their tertiary studies. So this SADC university will be in a form whereby it will focus on vocational skills and young people. It is hoped that from that university they'll be able to start their own businesses and all that. So that is the focus, and in that way they are hoping that the issue of unemployment will sort of be able to be addressed.
All right, another country that is obviously part of the 15-member bloc, SADC, is Mozambique. You've also done a little bit of reporting relating to the political situation in Mozambique. Share some of the points with us in terms of what is happening there currently. What is it perhaps that's on the agenda that we can expect that the double troika will focus on?
Well, you'll know that Mozambique is also one country that went through a lot when it comes to peace and stability. You'll know it's a country that went through a civil war, 15 years of civil war that actually, we'll say, kind of destroyed the country, and they had to start afresh. So that is something that Mozambique doesn't want to happen again. Hence, when we did the elections in 2014, we noted that there were quite some concerns that that kind of a civil war might resurface, and it will sort of destabilize economic growth in the country. As you all know, that there's been some tensions between Renamo, which is the opposition party led by Afonso Dhlakama, and the government of Mozambique. During those elections in 2014, you'll know that Frelimo won those elections, but the opposition party challenged the results to say that the results were not credible. Hence, there were some clashes, mostly in the northern part of Mozambique. Despite the fact that some international observers declared those elections to be relatively free and fair, there was that concern from the opposition parties, not only Renamo, but also the MDM, which was kind of a new political party, the Movement for Democratic Change in Mozambique. So right now here, we are hoping that we'll get a clue as to what is happening, because we know that of late, the recent developments, for the first time ever, the president of Mozambique, Filipe Nyusi, met with Afonso Dhlakama, the leader of Renamo, in the very same base, Korongosa, where Afonso Dhlakama used to camp in terms of his military staff. So it will be interesting as to what will be the way forward now, because there's been quite a number of teams that has been sent to Mozambique in terms of mediation processes. We know that there's been international like representatives from different countries. From Tanzania, we had Jakaya Kikwete, the former president, also trying to assist. But now they decided to say, no, let's do away with international facilitators. Let's now focus on this issue domestically. That is why they had an agreement that no, let's have a one-on-one engagement, that is the president of Mozambique and Afonso Dhlakama, to see as to what is it that they can do to sort of map a way forward, because what the opposition wants is to have equal representation in the military, because they're arguing that they've got enough votes to sort of can be allowed to run their own provinces in Mozambique. So it will be interesting to see what comes out in terms of the double troika meeting that is going on.
All right. Thank you so much, Mweli, for bringing us into the picture. Of course, that tells us that a lot of work needs to be done by, of course, the ministers who are part of the SADC bloc. Now, we know that for the past week that the SADC Council of Ministers, of course, met behind closed doors, and these were some of the issues that they were discussing, and that they tried to of course, find solutions on and agreements on. So as Mweli has just mentioned, that it would be really interesting to find out exactly what agreements do they reach on these problem countries in the region, such as, of course, as we mentioned, Lesotho, the DRC, Mozambique, and of course Swaziland. We know that there are also tensions in Zimbabwe. We read over the weeks the tensions that broke out there between the army and the police. So there's a lot of issues that relates to, of course, the security, peace and political stability in those countries. But for the rest of the day here at the SADC summit, we are expecting the heads of state from the region to, of course, also join us here for the summit, and they will be presented with the draft report that is compiled by the ministers who had, of course, for the past week met behind closed doors to try and reach reforms on those particular issues. But I think for us here right now, we will wrap up here and we'll come back to you a little bit later. And for now, let's go to a break, and we'll come back later with other interviews.
Phones, cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join me, Spumelele Zondi, on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
I came there and then wanted to sing with them, and then they said, no, you are too young to sing with us. Then I got angry that day. That's when the Dr. Malinga was born. I don't want to say poor because of now we are not poor. That means God wanted to give us whatever He gave me today. Till I was featured by DJ Choice on the song called Casanova. Signed with Kalawa Jasmine via Orlando. Many songs. Then Dr. Malinga this, Dr. Malinga that. Then I was in.
For more inspiring stories, stay tuned to Bupilong every Friday.
Political analyst Elvis Besoga now joins us from our Polokwane studios to help us make some sense out of all of this that's happening within the African National Congress. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
My namesake Elvis. Good morning to you and all the viewers of SABC News.
Now, would you say that the latest developments within the African National Congress is a classic pre-election conference theatrics, or is there more to it that we can read into it?
You know, Elvis, I'm becoming extremely fearful of the trajectory that our country is embarking on, the Republic of South Africa, because the recent actions by the ANC national leadership to seek to embark on a witch hunt and a ghost hunt against ANC members of parliament who acted constitutionally on the 8th of August, it's an indication that, you know, we are entering a very scary, you know, trajectory as a country. Because remember, the moment an organization such as the ANC adopts autocratic totalitarianism that seek to silence those who speak truth, honesty and principle, then doom and gloom will fall on our country. Because I'm asking myself, why should the ANC national leadership seek to undermine and besmirch the quality of our constitution? Because the constitution is quite clear when it comes to determination of democracy that a secret ballot will be utilized even during general elections and local government elections. Millions of citizens are using a secret vote to determine a new kind of government that they want. Remember, even this democracy that we are having, the one that was born on 27 April 1994, came as a result of a secret vote. A secret vote is a father and a mother of our constitutional democracy. So why should the ANC national leadership today try to undermine this constitutional reality of a secret vote? Because, and I don't understand, why are they seeking to punish them? Because they voted with their conscience, which is protected by our constitution. Because we can't say the ANC constitution is more supreme to the constitution of the Republic of South Africa. It's very worrisome, Elvis.
Now, you heard from the ANC Youth League, and they gave us a consolation that it will be an investigation. It's not a witch hunt. They won't open the ballot boxes. Does it help you in any case in relation to what you are saying?
You know, I wonder whether the ANC national leaders, and by extension, the broader national leadership of the ANC Youth League, whether do they sometimes have time to think, you know, logically and intelligently? I wonder, because, you know, logically sane people and leaders, when they are faced with this kind of a challenge, they will never try, you know, to witch hunt or ghost hunt, members who acted, you know, within their conscience. Because the question is, how are they going to know which ANC MPs voted for the motion or voted against the motion or even abstained? Remember something very important that is missing from the public discourse with regard to this debate. is that there are three categories of voters who participated in the motion of no confidence. Firstly, there were those who voted for the motion. Secondly, there were those who voted against the motion. And thirdly, there are those who abstained. An interesting question is, will the ANC national leadership also embark on a witch hunt against those who abstained? Because now they are only talking about those who did not vote for President Jacob Zuma. What about those who abstained? So to me, it's a very thoughtless and a very foolish exercise on the part of the ANC, because you will never know how members voted. It was a secret vote. Even the IEC, our Independent Electoral Commission, should advise the ANC to tell them if there was a secret vote, it is impossible to know how a citizen voted during a secret election.
Now, also, the Pietermaritzburg High Court has heard how a few disgruntled individuals are trying to fight what was legally elected as the new executive in the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Does this particular court case speak to the schisms within the African National Congress?
Come again, Elvis. I didn't capture the last part of the question.
Does this indicate about a schism within the party? Because the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, you've seen that High Court case happening there where the branches are complaining about the elected leadership.
You know, if you remember, I think, you know, the other camp or faction, you know, of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, you know, that, you know, took the matter to the High Court, seem to be having a leg to stand on, because I remember there were reports prior to that, you know, provincial conference of the ANC that seek to say the office of the Secretary General of the ANC advised against holding that provincial conference. And if that is true, obviously, it is going to be entertained in court to say if indeed the Secretary General expressed, you know, an opinion to say that I don't think you are ready, let us not hold a conference now. But other people decided against that. So it is having some local standing as far as I'm concerned. But at the end of the day, we don't know how a court of law is going to adjudicate. We don't know whether it's going to rule in favor of the faction that is against the elected leadership or in favor of the current provincial leadership in KwaZulu-Natal. It's a matter of just wait and see game.
Mr. Motsoga, very briefly, in 30 seconds, do you think that the latest developments within the African National Congress will affect the outcomes of the elective conference at the end of the year?
You know, one thing that we are not aware, we are facing the possibility of the death of the Tripartite Alliance, absolutely in a literal sense, because a particular presidential outcome can result in the political death of the Tripartite Alliance, because my observation is that COSATU and Communist Party, they will never associate themselves after the December conference with an ANC that is led by a person they believe does no longer represent the ANC, because they made it very clear. And even if you are gouging the language, the tone by leaders of COSATU and Communist Party, they are willing to walk away if a particular presidential candidate is elected in December. So there is a possibility that the Tripartite Alliance can die a natural death after this December conference. But it will depend on who will emerge victorious as the new president of the ANC after December.
I thank you so much for your time, sir. That was political analyst Elvis Motsoga talking to us from Polokwane. Well, what do you make of that?
Very interesting conversation right there. My name is Kendall Makamate, and it is time for sports as we go into this massive sporting weekend where South Africa will put the final touches to its preparations when the team gathers for the traditional captain's run in the Nelson. Nakutsia made 3 changes to a team that beat France in the 3rd Test match in Johannesburg at the end of June. The 2 main changes are Uzair Kasim starting as 8th man and Kuri Oosthuizen replacing Ruan Dreyer at tight head prop. Welcome back. It's time for the sport. Let's try and do that again. We've covered what's happening with the Springboks, and of course, we're now going to talk about what's happening with the Pumas. But let's see if it can be decided exactly what story I'm working on right now. Which story is it? Right, we're going to talk about Argentina, are we? Right, well, Argentina have named a strong side to face the Springboks in PE on Saturday. There are 3 changes to the team that beat Georgia in the June internationals. Agustin Krevi will captain of Pumas, leading the pack from the hooker berth. Scrum half Martin Lanajo wins his 70th test cap as he partners with the equally experienced Nicolas Sanchez as the half-back pairing. Head coach Daniel Urcade believes he's picked a balanced side for Argentina's first rugby championship match of 2017. It will be the 25th time that South Africa and Argentina play each other. Right, now Australia will take on New Zealand at the ANZ Stadium in Sydney in the first rugby championship match of the season tomorrow. The Wallabies' new captain, Michael Hooper, hopes that the current crop of Wallaby players who are untainted by a decade and a half of Bledisloe Cup failure will be able to make the mark against the All Blacks. Wallabies coach Michael Cheque has bloodied 20 new players since Australia lost the 2015 World Cup final to the All Blacks.
Former Rugby League winger Curtis Rona is in the squad for the Rugby Championship opener against New Zealand. Saturday's match also doubles up as the first of 3 Bledisloe Cup matches. Hooper thinks the overhaul of the squad means the team can dare to dream of wrestling back the trophy from New Zealand for the first time since 2002.
This group hasn't been through 10 or 12, however many years. And what's wrong with a dream? What's wrong with a goal that everyone here wants to achieve? There's nothing wrong with it. And that's what we should be aspiring to, and wanting. So, everyone in our change room has that mentality.
The bookmakers have made the All Blacks overwhelming favourites to prevail, but the Wallabies will give it their all.
Really important game. I mean, geez, it'll be nice to get a good start, good leg up, good confidence for the way we want to play the game going forward. And, we also like the challenge of going over New Zealand. So this group's hungry. It's hugely excited about what these 3 games, over the course of a couple of months has to offer.
None of Australia's 5 Super Rugby teams managed a win over New Zealand opposition in 26 attempts this year. Maybe the national team can bring back glory to Australian rugby with a win over the All Blacks. Mtutuzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Well, let's hope that those gremlins that beset the entire rugby segment have been taken care of and out of the way. Now, the 2018 African Nations Championship qualifiers have been a difficult process for Bafana Bafana. Something borne out in assistant coach Thabo Senong's less than confident approach that win or lose, it's player development that will carry the day for South Africa.
Stuart Baxter has had to build a new team for almost every CHAN qualification match. The competition is outside the FIFA international calendar, and clubs were not obliged to release players for the national team. This led to the constant call-up of new players to replace those that were recalled by their clubs. It has been a challenging exercise, but one that has been worth the effort.
We are using these CHAN qualifier matches as a vehicle to give exposure to some promising young talent. And then, of course, while at the same time we are looking, do we have a chance to qualify for CHAN 2018 in Kenya next year? Why not? So we have to give our all. We have to work as a team, as a unit, and then it will be a good story to make sure that we both discover young talent, at the same time maybe having a chance to qualify.
Bafana Bafana conceded 2 goals at home. The situation does not look good for the South Africans, who travelled to Ndola hoping to score without reply. Although they are faced with a tough task, they remain confident that the composition of the team can be effective.
The Zambians will be looking for a draw, not to concede. We have to work hard on our part just to make sure that we score 1-2 goals and remain solid in defence, and hopefully the outcome will be good.
Meanwhile, second assistant coach Quinton Fortune did not travel with the team to Zambia as initially anticipated. He remained behind to work with Baxter, who is also not part of the travelling team. They are preparing for next month's World Cup qualifiers against Cape Verde. Lebantube, SABC News, Kempton Park.
Now in tennis, Bulgarian Grigor Dimitrov has advanced to the quarterfinals of the Cincinnati Masters tennis tournament with his first victory ever over Argentina's Juan Martín del Potro. The 7th seed recorded a straight sets win as Del Potro struggled on court with the intense heat. Top-seeded Spaniard Rafael Nadal and Australian Nick Kyrgios will complete their matches today after evening rain kept the players off the court.
Dimitrov was on fire early on as he aimed to reach the semi-finals in Cincinnati for the second successive year. But Del Potro battled with the heat, the mercury rising to around 33 degrees Celsius. A doctor attended to the Argentine late in the second set, but Del Potro was determined to finish the match. Dimitrov, however, recorded a 6-3-7-5 win in 1 hour and 40 minutes and will face Japan's Yuichi Sugita next. Sugita overcame Russian Haren Khachanov in 3 sets. Third seed Dominic Thiem, meanwhile, battled past Adrian Mannarino. The Austrian needed 2 tiebreak sets to beat the unseeded Frenchman. Spaniard David Ferrer upset his 11th-seeded compatriot Pablo Carreño Busta. Ferrer recorded a straightforward 6-4-6-4 win to book a quarter-final clash with Thiem. Thunderstorms and rain, however, brought the day's play to an early end. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
That's it. Thanks very much for having joined us. We'll be back next week. Have yourselves a great weekend. Up next is the weather. Listen.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's take a look at what's happening on this cold, freezing day. Starting off with the southern parts of the country, we're expecting still cold weather to persist over the Eastern Cape with rainfall possible for today and tomorrow. But then just to take a closer look at the snowfall forecast, starting here over the Eastern Cape in places like Barkly, Eastern Elliot, and towards southern parts of Lesotho, and of course over parts of the interior of KwaZulu-Natal. That includes places like Ladysmith, Newcastle, Falkrast, and the southern parts of Mpumalanga, and also places like Standerton. May see some snowfalls for later on tonight. Otherwise, heavy rain is expected for the coastal areas of KwaZulu-Natal, up to 60% and even up to 80%, especially over the northern coastline of KwaZulu-Natal. That's also where we're expecting rainfall from Richards Bay, from towards Maputo. That's where we're expecting a warning for heavy rain, so do be careful in those areas. There may be flash flood leading to urban flooding. And looking at tomorrow's weather, still clear skies over most of the interior, but along the western coastline here, we're expecting stronger northeasterly winds all along the western coastline, dry conditions there and warmer weather, but along the east, still cold weather for Gauteng residents into Mpumalanga. Cloudy weather in KwaZulu-Natal, especially over the coastal areas, with a small possibility of some isolated showers, especially along the extreme northeastern coastline. Otherwise, isolated showers are expected for tomorrow in the northern parts of Mozambique and southern parts of Tanzania. And of course, the DRC is seeing some moisture coming back in towards the southern parts, including places like closer towards Tanzania. Now, your temperatures for this afternoon, still expecting warm weather along the western parts of the country, like Springbok. We've got this northerly and northeasterly flow, which is warming up the towns here along the western coastline. Cape Town at 19, but over the east, we're still seeing those cold conditions. Komani at 12, like I said, still expecting snowfalls, especially disruptive snowfalls, especially here in the southern parts of Lesotho. Durban only peaking at 15. It's a cool day for the rest of the day today. And of course, Limpopo province is now starting to see cooler conditions. Polokwane at 19 for today, and minimum temperatures overnight will be very cold in those areas. So do get an extra blanket just for the chilly winter this weekend. And looking at the northern parts, the cold winter is also moving in towards places like Gaborone and Maun for tomorrow. In Botswana, we're seeing a high of 23. It's been relatively warm for the past couple of days. Looking at Victoria, tomorrow it's still quite warm today. It's at 29. And the northern parts, looking at Nampula, only peaking at 30. And going towards the islands, we're seeing some isolated showers in places like Moroni, with rainy weather expected, Moroni and Victoria. Well, for today, I'll leave your weather here for now. This was Newsroom weather. Keep on watching.